Story 1. I caught my wife's double life on social media, so I served her with divorce papers and got full custody of our son. Hello everyone. I, 39M, work as a receptionist in a hotel, and I'm married to my wife, Jessica, 34F, who is a nurse in a hospital. We have been married for 12 years and have a 10-year-old son. Our married life was simple and normal, just like every normal person's. Though financially we suffered a lot and had great difficulty making ends meet, we somehow managed to do it. Jessica was a great partner and mother. She's a hard-working woman and took on half of the responsibility, which made it less difficult for both of us. I didn't make much money as a receptionist, so I had to do extra work at a food hub. We were hardly present at the same time, but we cherished weekends a lot. Our son, Robert, used to spend his daytime with his grandparents, and in the evening we both would take him home at 9 o'clock. Usually, sometimes, during Jessica's overnight stay, Robert would stay the night at his grandparents' house. Our marriage was going smoothly, and things were just normal with a mixture of peace and stress. However, I was grateful to have a partner like Jessica, who never left my side in times of adversity and helped me through. We both were absent parents, and that really made me feel sad. But at the end of the day, it was for our own good. But things got weird and took a bad turn on the day she came back from her friend's wedding. It wasn't just a normal wedding, but a luxurious 5-day event. I was also invited to the wedding, but due to my workload, I refused to go and stayed back. I also skipped it so I could save money. After she came back from the wedding, she was unusually quiet. I asked her if she was fine, and she got irritated with me, so I let her settle and gave her time. However, it started to trouble me more when she turned cold toward me. Not only did she become quiet, but she became irritated at me, but she wasn't telling me at all what was bothering her. After a week, she finally burst out of her frustration at the dinner table. I casually asked her which movie she wanted to see tonight. Initially, she ignored me and then got agitated at me for asking her such questions. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that she regretted marrying me and that all her friends were having their dream lives. But as for her, she was suffering and I wasn't doing much as a man. I failed to provide her with the life she wanted. Instead of watching movies at home, when would I take her to the theater? There was a lot more that she said and stood up from the table, leaving the half-finished plate on the table. I stayed silent because I saw it coming. One day she was going to snap at me, and it wasn't her fault for having such wishes. I decided to apply for jobs and interview more and more. The next day, she didn't come home at her usual time and said she had extra hours at the hospital. Robert and I waited for her, but it got late, so I tucked him in bed. After a while, I slept too, and Jessica came back at 4 o'clock in the morning. I asked her to come and sleep next to me and I would take care of the housework. I wrapped my arms around her waist and tried initiating sex, but she got irritated and asked me not to touch her. Obviously, I respect her consent, but the way she snapped at me made me feel like she was disgusted by me. I somehow managed to keep my thoughts calm and went back to sleep. The next day was Sunday. In the morning, I called her for breakfast, and she came down looking irritated. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me she wanted to buy herself a set of lingerie and she wanted my card. In that situation, I couldn't say no to her, so I gave it to her. The card had money that I was saving up for Robert, and I felt quite uneasy. I asked her if she could wait for a week until my salary came, then buy it instead of using my card. She threw my card on the table and asked me to keep it, calling me stingy and that I even refused to buy her basic things. I held her wrist and apologized millions of times to make her accept the card again. She took the card, kissed my cheeks to say thank you, and left. Her phone was on the table, and it started buzzing. I took her phone and saw the text registration of some social media applications. I was going to open the phone, but Jessica came down, and I put the phone down on the table immediately. She took her phone and went outside. After a while, I took Robert to his grandparents, and on my way, I got a message from the bank about the debited money. It was $1,200. I stopped my car and my hands were on my head, thinking how crazy Jessica had been acting. I dropped off my son, called Jessica, and asked her to come back home. She came back home, and I asked her about the stuff she bought for $1,200 and how she could spend such a huge amount of money in just one go. I had been saving it for the family. Obviously. She kept listening, started crying, and kept blaming me, saying that I ruined her life and that I couldn't even fulfill her basic wishes. All her friends were living a luxurious life. It's just me living at rock bottom. I told her she was acting crazy and greedy, and she knew my financial condition before marrying me. I did my best, and I'm still doing it, and she shouldn't blame me for that. I told her that everything was fine a few months ago, but what's wrong now? Why was she acting like that suddenly? I don't know what happened to her. She sat in front of me with those guilty eyes and apologized to me for acting like that. She told me that on her friend's wedding day, all her friends were wearing branded clothes and carrying luxurious bags and accessories. Her friends kind of embarrassed her and asked her if her husband wasn't doing enough for her. I felt bad for her and forgave her. Along with that, I asked her to understand that not everyone can afford the same lifestyle, and we both were trying our best to resolve the situation, so she shouldn't make herself feel embarrassed. Instead, she should feel great that she was an independent woman. She hugged me, and we got intimate after so many days. I was happy and satisfied with the ups and downs because that's what makes the relationship more transparent and worth it. But soon it went down again. Again, her phone started buzzing with text messages from some app, but from the locked screen, I wasn't able to see which app it was. I was going to open the phone, but the password was incorrect. At first, I didn't mind and asked her for the password and told her about the text. She didn't give me any details or her password, and she casually took her phone and left the room. After Jessica fell asleep, I took the phone from her side and tried entering the password, but it failed again. I was annoyed and tried processing my thoughts as to why she had changed her password. As soon as I put her phone back, it started buzzing again with a series of notifications. It was troubling. In the morning, I went back to work and dropped her off. Yesterday was our wedding anniversary, and I did remember but pretended to be oblivious as I prepared a surprise for her. After dropping her off at the hospital, I went back to my place and set it up beautifully with warm lights and lilies. Robert was going to stay at his grandparents' tonight. I was so excited and happy while preparing her favorite meals. After placing everything nicely, the door opened, and Jessica walked in. Her tired face changed into happiness as soon as she saw the house set up romantically. She ran toward me and hugged me tightly. We had a great time together, and finally we sat down to talk. She told me that she loved the efforts I had put in, but if we had money, we could go to a fancy restaurant. She also started telling me about her friend whose husband gifted her a diamond ring. I started to feel insecure and realized that she didn't like what I did to make her happy, and she was not satisfied at all. I listened to her quietly, faking a smile. I didn't want to fight with her on my anniversary. To distract her, I started clicking pictures of us, but as soon as I was going to upload those, she asked me not to post these pictures as our house and everything looked cheap, and she didn't want her friends to see them. She was so harsh and made everything seem worthless. The food and the flowers were worth nothing in front of her greedy eyes. Jessica was from a well-to-do family, but she was never greedy, or maybe she never showed that to me. She knew about my humble earnings, and she never complained about it, but suddenly she had become so materialistic. I was still not able to process my thoughts. She went inside the bedroom and called me after a few minutes. She was wearing red lingerie and looked extremely ravishing. I went toward her and started kissing her, but she stopped and asked me to click a few pictures of hers. We had fun, and the rest of the time went well. In the morning, I got a call from Robert's school, and I immediately drove off. After reaching the school, the teachers told me that he got into a fight. I asked Robert what was wrong, and he told me that his friend, James, was making fun of Mom, and that he was telling everyone that Mom got fired from the hospital. James' mother was also a nurse in the same hospital as Jessica. I didn't want to believe what I heard. Maybe it was just a rumor. If that really happened, why didn't she tell me? I left for my work after that, but I was just not able to process all the changes going on in my life. I sensed something was wrong with Jessica. There's something she's hiding. I'm not doubting her outrightly that she's cheating on me, but she's definitely up to something. Update 1. Hey everyone. It's been a week since my last update, as I was dealing with many issues and finally decided to divorce Jessica after knowing the truth. After hearing the rumor from Robert, I couldn't sleep for days and decided to find the truth. Today morning, I just drove off to the hospital. I asked the receptionist to call Jessica, introducing myself as her husband. The receptionist looked at me and then shared looks with the other lady on the counter. The receptionist told me that Jessica no longer works there. I asked her since when, and she said, "A month ago." I asked her the reason, but she didn't tell me. Her look suggested that she knew and it was pretty bad, but she didn't tell me. I was coming out of the hospital, confused and angry. I was wondering if she was fired. Then where was she working these days and from where was she getting money? As I was about to get in the car, James' mother waved at me to stop. She apologized for James' behavior and how she shouldn't have talked about such things in front of her son. I nodded and said not to worry. She said she had something I needed to know. I knew what it was. She told me that after Jessica came back from her leave, the wedding leave, she started feeling very insecure and sad about her life, and the only thing she talked about was money. She took Jessica's cribbing to be normal stuff, as we all feel like that sometimes. But that didn't stop there. Jessica created an adult profile on social media. I was shocked and felt numb. She said that Jessica got fired because she was caught making obscene videos and clicking naked pictures in the storeroom of the hospital. One of the janitors saw it, made videos of it, and leaked it to every staff, and that's how everyone got to know. I asked her for the name of the social media app, and she gave me her number and told me that she would send me an account link of Jessica's profile. She asked me to stop Jessica, or that would create problems for Robert in his school. I requested her not to discuss all this in front of James, as that would further create problems for him. She agreed. I felt so disgusted after hearing this that I wanted to throw up. Never in my life have I felt so worthless, and I blamed myself for everything she was doing. It was because I failed to provide. After crying my heart out inside my car, I decided to gather all the evidence by myself and then confront Jessica because she was going to feed me lies on lies. While I was driving back, I remembered that a few days back, I was scrolling down my social media and saw a new profile in my suggestions. In the profile picture, there was a woman who was wearing red lingerie, but her face was hidden. I don't know why her back resembled that of Jessica's. I clicked on it, but it took me to an 18-plus website for adult entertainment. I took that to be another promotion gimmick of an adult dating app and ignored it. Now I realized that the social media app shows you the suggestions if the person is on your contact list. That woman was definitely Jessica. The dots started to connect, and I felt uneasy and anxious. In the evening when I reached home, I found several packages on the couch. Dresses, heels, bags, and whatnot lying around that were just bought out of the store. I took out the bill from the sofa and couldn't breathe for a moment after seeing that she bought $900 lipstick. Jessica came out of the room and looked scared to see me. I showed her the bill and asked her where she got all the money. She threw the stuff from her hand on the floor and told me that she regrets marrying me and that she feels confined inside the walls of poverty. She wanted a few things for herself and she got it. What's the big deal about it? She was like, "Why does my life always have to be about our son or this house? Why can't I spend my savings on something I love?" I almost laughed at her manipulative tactics but pretended not to know the truth. I took a deep breath and again asked her where she got all the money. She looked at me and told me that she got promoted to a different healthcare center and they paid her a good amount. I nodded and went outside for a walk. James' mother texted me Jessica's adult account details, and without even opening the account, I knew it was Jessica. I put my hands on my face and didn't have the courage to open it and see it for myself. But the anger and the insults she put me through daily were humiliating, only to realize that she sold her body to the public for materials and ruined our 13 years of marriage. I searched the username, and it showed the exact same account I had on my suggestions a few days ago. I made a new account, created a whole fake profile, and did everything that was needed. I found her account, but to see her content I had to subscribe and it cost $200. I paid that amount, a big amount for me, but a small amount to pay to save myself from daily humiliation. Her profile said, "Your personal nurse," and after taking the subscription, the account finally opened. My palms were sweaty, my mouth felt bitter, and I almost threw up when I saw those pictures. Those pictures and videos were scary, but the comments were terrifying. Half of the stuff was hidden and they cost such high rates. Not only this, but she also posted the pictures I clicked on the day of our anniversary. The same pictures now look disgusting to me. The comments were outrageous, and I couldn't look at that anymore, like I couldn't look at her anymore, and immediately thought of divorce. There was no time to delay that, so I called my brother and asked him to help me prepare the divorce paper. He worked for an attorney. When I came back home, she wasn't there. She left a note, leaving for night shift. The fun part is she's jobless. I don't want to spell this out, but God knows what kind of night shift she's into. I don't think I'll be able to sleep until I confront her and humiliate her the way she insulted me, and for that, I didn't have to do anything because she did it herself. Update 2. It's been a while since the last update, as I was dealing with severe trauma, and the divorce process was harder to process. So the next morning after my last update, I woke up to Jessica's yelling at Robert, asking him to stay the hell away from her expensive things. He was apparently messing around with the expensive stuff she bought last night. This brought anger down my body. I asked Robert to go inside his room. I gave her a cold stare and asked her again where she got this much money. She put her phone aside and asked me if I had lost my hearing ability. I laughed at her comment and told her that at least I didn't lose respect for myself the way she did. She looked completely oblivious and asked me what I was talking about. I told her to continue with your personal nurse business, and that the divorce papers would reach her soon. She understood where I was coming from. It was her username on the adult website. She sat on the sofa and felt ashamed. I told her not to feel ashamed or regret this after getting caught because it was her own choice. She started crying and saying that she couldn't take all the insults she went through in front of her friends and cousins when they showed off their luxurious lives. She was leading a mediocre lifestyle, so she took that path and bought herself the expensive stuff. I yelled at her that a modest lifestyle is still much better than showing your naked body to the world, and if she still wanted to pursue that, she should have told me. I know it's her body and her choice BS, but she need not keep me in the dark and would have done that openly. I told her that I knew why she got fired from the hospital and that my innocent boy had to suffer the bullies in his school because of her fantasy and greed. Her body language suggested she had no remorse. It felt like she was going to continue doing this after our divorce, and every tear was just an act of being caught, not guilt of what she had been doing. She said we could figure out a middle ground and that I couldn't take our son away from her. I told her that it was impossible to spend my life with someone who could show her nudity and nakedness in front of the whole world just for the sake of easy money. I know she didn't care about our son at all. I asked her if she had any idea how humiliating it was going to be for Robert when he got to know from his friends or people around him that his mother sold her nudes for a living. Have you thought of the consequences we are going to face because of your greed? She remained silent and then started arguing, saying that it was partially my fault and that she had no choice. I told her she clearly had a choice and she chose to be a whore instead of being broke. Her face disgusted me, and I left the house with Robert for my parents. I worked overtime and did as many jobs as I could for her and my son, and still, she was an ungrateful, disgusting, immoral bitch, and I could never accept such a person back in my life. I've been living with my parents for the last 1 week. Jessica didn't try to contact me or our son. The divorce paper is supposed to come in the next few days, and I want this to be over as soon as possible. Update 3. Hello everyone. I finally got rid of my ex-wife from my life. Phew. It took days for the divorce papers to reach her. During the divorce process, Jessica and her parents filed a case against me for complete custody of Robert. I had almost lost the case. They made me look like a poor and unavailable father who never did anything for my son. Like I said, her parents are well off, and they claimed that I won't be able to provide a good life for Robert. And that's when I made them ask her about her job and if she is a suitable guardian for a 10-year-old. Obviously, I cannot leave the custody of my son to Jessica's parents. I told the judges and showed the proof of her immoral acts and how her reputation will take a toll on Robert's mental health and social value. I don't want my son to go through bullying, and that's how I got the complete custody of him. Robert himself was not attached to her mother, but I did allow her to meet him whenever she wanted. Jessica's parents and her siblings blamed me for her actions. They said that she chose that path because I couldn't give her the life she deserved. They never wanted Jessica to marry me, and this whole scenario gave them another opportunity to make fun of me. The joke is on them, actually, if they can really see. Anyway, I don't give a shit about anyone now. I'm just happy to have a peaceful life with my son. I lost a fortune going through this, but it was worth it. As for her, I heard she is still there on that adult site selling her nudes to make money. Thankfully, I didn't forgive her and dodged a bullet. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I called CPS on my husband and sister-in-law after they forced my bullied son to sleep over with his bully cousin behind my back. Hey everyone. I'm a 37-year-old woman and have been married for 9 years. My husband, Harry, is 40, and I also have a 7-year-old son, Nate. Harry's sister, Kim, also has a son around the same age as Nate. Her son, Dean, and my son used to be close, and we used to have playdates almost every other day until recently. For the past couple of months, Nate has been telling me that Dean is bullying him at school. Both of them go to the same school and used to be in the same class too, but after my son complained about being bullied and made fun of by Dean, I spoke to their principal and had his class changed. Both of them are in 2nd grade, and I tried everything to fix the situation before taking that step. I'd spoken to Kim about the bullying, but she laughed it off and said that the boys were just being boys, and they'd get over it. My son's a rough and tumble little boy, too, so if he was actually complaining about being constantly bullied by Dean, then I believed that there was something wrong and it wasn't just playing rough. When talking to Kim didn't work, I spoke to his teacher and had them separated. Since then, Kim and I haven't exactly been on good terms, and I avoid her at family gatherings because I don't want to speak to her. Her son is very unruly and rude and has absolutely no idea how to behave in public. He's just 7, so things must be pretty bad, you guys can imagine. I don't think he's a good influence on my son, so I've stopped them from hanging out together and have told Nate to keep a distance from his cousin. He's okay with it because he was getting bullied and he didn't get along with his cousin anymore. Kim was either oblivious to all of this, or she just didn't want to acknowledge that there was something wrong with the way her son had been behaving recently. This might also have something to do with Kim's recent breakup. I'm not sure, though. She was dumped by her boyfriend of 3 years just 6 months ago. But none of us know the reason why that happened, and she's been weird ever since that happened. It seems like she's very detached from everyone now and only cares about herself, not even her son. She'd never married Dean's father, and they had broken up within a year of Dean's birth, but he had continued to co-parent their kid. He lives nearby so Dean can continue to go to the same school, and he and Kim can easily take turns looking after Dean. As far as I know, they're not exactly on good terms, but they're not on bad terms either. He's not really close to the family, so we don't see the guy unless it's Dean's birthday that's being celebrated or Hanukkah at Kim's house, which is a holiday she hosts every year. That's the only time we see the guy, and he seems like a nice person who loves his son. At Dean's last birthday, which was 3 months ago, a couple of days before Nate and Dean were separated in school, he seemed very upset with Kim over something, but we didn't know what it was. I did guess that it must have been over Dean since he'd been behaving badly at the party as well. But Kim was acting like there was nothing wrong with the way he'd been acting. I didn't even want to go to that party, and neither did Nate because of Dean's behavior, but my husband insisted, so we did end up going. I didn't want us to fight because of that, and I figured just making an appearance would have been enough, so we did just that and came back home, and this way everyone was happy. A few weeks after that, Nate had his class changed, and after that, Kim and I didn't meet or speak to each other one-on-one. A few days ago, I sent out invitations to a lot of moms from Nate's group because Nate was celebrating his birthday in a couple of days. I did not invite Kim and her son because Nate didn't want Dean to be there, and neither did I. But when Kim found out that I hadn't invited her but a lot of other kids had been invited, she was furious and called me to demand an explanation and to make sure her son got invited. I told her the real reason why her son wasn't invited and didn't mince my words because I thought she'd been letting her son run free and behave in a really awful way. I could understand that she'd just been through a bad breakup, but that was really no excuse to let her son be so undisciplined. And even if she believed it was all right, she could let that behavior remain confined to her own life and household, but I wasn't going to force my son and I to be a part of that. Dean had bullied Nate enough to make him not want to be around him at all, And to me, my son's well-being was more important than maintaining relationships. She was very angry and said a lot of horrible things about me and my son and then hung up. I didn't think much of it because I knew an outburst like this was bound to happen at some point, and it didn't make much of a difference to me if she didn't talk to me over this since we weren't really that close anyway. After she refused to raise her son better, I'd completely cut her off in my head. Out of love for my husband, I'd still tried to have a cordial relationship with her and attended her son's birthday, but it had been 3 months since that, and her son's behavior had only gotten worse, so now I didn't see any reason for us to force ourselves or our sons to be friends when they so clearly didn't get along with each other. My husband wasn't happy about this when he found out, but he also didn't say anything about it. Nate's birthday is coming up in 4 days, and after that phone call, Kim didn't try to talk to me about the birthday invitation. Then, 2 days ago, I had to attend a wedding, but it was out of town, so I had to stay overnight after the wedding. My husband told me that he couldn't attend because he was busy with work, and Nate didn't want to go since he would have to skip 1 day of school, which he didn't want to do. So it was just me attending. It was a 4-hour drive to the location, and the wedding and after-party were all wrapped by 11 p.m. I called my husband once I got to the hotel to check up on him and Nate, but to my surprise, my husband told me that Nate wasn't there. I didn't understand what he was talking about because it was really late at night, so I obviously expected my son to be at home. I asked him where he was, and he told me that Nate was with Kim, which shocked me because I'd made it very clear that I didn't want her or her son around Nate at all. Not because of any personal issues, but mostly because Nate didn't want to be around them. Once I got over the shock, I snapped and asked my husband to get him back home right that instant, but he told me that I was overreacting, and that they're just kids, so they could sort it out if they just had one sleepover together. Kim had apparently come by to pick my son up from our house to take him home, and my husband had let her because he thought that it was totally fine just because Kim was family. He believed that Nate had to toughen up and learn how to be friends with his cousin instead of running away like a baby. I hung up on my husband because he was talking crazy and decided to call my parents so they could go over to Kim's house and bring Nate back to their own house where he'd stay until I came back the next day. I also called the cops who got CPS involved, and they went along with my parents to bring Nate back home. I don't know what went down there exactly, but what I did find out from my parents later on was that Nate was very upset and had definitely been crying a lot. He'd even refused to have dinner at Kim's house because of some things that Dean had said about me, which he'd undoubtedly heard from his mother. So Kim had sent my son to sleep without any dinner. He was glad to be out of there and go home with my parents. I didn't rest until I was sure that he was with my parents, and even then, I was shaking like a leaf because of how overwhelming this experience had been for me. I started my drive back home as soon as my son was safe with my parents, and I had told the cops that I wanted to press charges against Kim and my husband. I had to be present in person for that, so I left the hotel at around 11:30 and headed straight to my parents' house. Once I'd seen my son in person and made sure he was okay, I headed over to the police station and pressed charges against both my husband and his sister. They'd been detained for a day but had been released afterward, and they'd have to stay in the state until the charges against them had been dropped or they were acquitted. I think they'd been let off pretty easily, given the seriousness of what they'd done, because essentially, Kim had taken my child away from his home without my approval, and it was absolutely not okay. Maybe he wasn't physically hurt, but he was emotionally really distressed and didn't even want to go to school today because he thought he'd have to come across him or Dean, and that kid would end up bullying him again. There had been a pattern of roughhousing and playing rough, but this was different, and it needed to end. If a 7-year-old is afraid of another kid to the point of being terrified to even see him, then there's certainly something very strange about that. I didn't let my son go to school, and I've decided to file for a divorce and full custody of Nate because I don't think my husband is capable of handling a child if he's willing to put family over his own kid's mental and emotional health. He didn't even apologize to me, but as soon as he got his phone back, he texted me to tell me that what I'd done was really disgusting and that he didn't want to see me because I was not fit to be a mother. He said I'd raise a sensitive girl instead of a son, and he wasn't on board with it, so now I could either come back to him and raise Nate on his terms, or I'd have to fight him for custody. I didn't even respond to that message, but a couple of hours ago, I received another message from him saying that Kim was in the hospital because of me. Apparently, he said that because of my overreaction the other day, Kim's ex had decided to file for full custody of Dean and had even come by to take him away because he believed that she wasn't capable of raising him anymore. She couldn't even stop him because he'd come with CPS. And since she was already facing charges for what she'd done with Nate, things weren't looking too good for her. So Dean was removed from her custody. She tried to deal with the situation by having a temper tantrum once they'd left and ended up smashing a lot of things in her house in a fit of rage. One of those things had been her glass coffee table, and when she'd smashed it, it had shattered, and glass shards were all over the floor, which is how she'd injured herself. Now my husband was blaming me for all of this because my actions had triggered this behavior, and even though I'd known that she was going through a breakup, I'd still called the cops on them for something petty, despite knowing that Kim was unstable right now. He's even called me a home wrecker, because I've not only ruined my own marriage, he's also holding me responsible for breaking Kim's family apart, which doesn't make sense because she and her ex were never even married or anything. I don't understand what to think right now. AITA for reporting my husband and his sister to CPS after he let her take our son to her house to bond with her son who bullies and scares my son. Update 1. Hey, you guys. Thank you so much for the overwhelming response I got here. It was nice to have people on my side here because everyone else, apart from my parents, is certainly not on my side right now. Everyone's upset that Kim injured herself, and she even ended up in a rehabilitation center because she had a complete mental breakdown. I don't understand why his family and even some of our friends are blaming me for all of this because if anything, the violent episode that she had just proves that she's not fit to raise a child. Not right now at least. Because this could have just as easily happened while her son was inside the house with her, and then he would have been in danger as well, so I probably did everyone a favor. But mostly, people have accused me of overreacting and being too sensitive. I mean, how was I too sensitive? The woman had literally taken my kid away from home, and my husband had let her, and then even tried to act like it was okay even though he knew how much Nate didn't like to be in the company of his cousin. I'd only called the cops because my husband refused to care for his son, and obviously someone had to. The kid's not even 10 yet. There's also the fact that Kim didn't find it necessary to discipline her own child at any point, but because Nate was under stress and was very upset, she thought that it would be appropriate to send him to bed without dinner just because he was sad and wanted to go home. And nobody seems to think that there's anything wrong with what she did, just because she had a mental breakdown and ended up in the psych ward. It just seems really unfair to me that everyone's blaming me for what she did even though I had no part to play in it. If she was under so much distress, then she really should have sought professional help earlier, but she didn't, and I don't understand how that's my fault. I didn't intend to create such a chain reaction of bad things to happen to Kim. I was just trying to protect my son. I don't understand why that's so hard for certain people to accept. I've already been feeling really upset about the divorce that's going to take place, and this is certainly not helping my situation. I feel like I just had to vent and let all these feelings out somewhere and somehow, so I'm treating Reddit as my journal right now. I need a lot of mental strength to get through this because what happened with Kim was bad, and I do feel sorry for her, but I don't think lashing out at me is the right move like most of my friends and my husband's relatives seem to think it is. My only solace is that at least Nate is happy, and he's even resumed going back to school now. He's happier now that Dean's father has taken Dean away so they can start afresh. They've moved a few blocks away, and Dean's going to another school now from what I heard from a couple of the mothers who keep in touch with the faculty. It's not ethical to gossip about the parents, but this is the first time that the gossip has been of any help to me, so I'm thankful. Nate's back to school again, and as for the divorce in custody, I've already filed for a divorce in full custody. My husband's yet to be served, but I'm sure that when he is, he's not going to let this go without a fight. I've already told my lawyer to take a look at our finances because 9 years is a long time, and I don't want him to screw me over, which he might try to do now that he and his family suddenly hate me. I can't say this is coming as a surprise. I'd always known he was fiercely loyal and protective of his family, but I really had never imagined that he would pick them even over us. I don't understand how he can just treat me like this after almost a decade of being together. And I'm kicking myself for not letting him go the second he showed the first signs of wanting Nate and Dean to still be friends even after our son was being bullied. I should never have attended that damn birthday party with my son and shouldn't have dropped that fight so easily. Then, maybe we could have at least ended our marriage without so much drama. But unfortunately, I thought about giving him a second chance, and well, look where that landed me. Update 2. Hey guys, so today my husband responded to the divorce petition, and he isn't contesting it, which is a relief because I don't think I would have been able to handle the stress of that mentally, but he's not ready to give up custody of Nate yet, so that's going to be a problem. My lawyer and I did see this coming, and we prepared for it, so we're hoping it works out well for us. And I think it will because after what my husband did, I don't think any judge would want Nate to remain in his custody. He also hasn't visited Nate or me ever since I left, and I've been living with my parents for a while now. He hasn't even contacted me to check up on how Nate has been doing, which is kind of surprising since he wants custody of his son but can't be bothered to ask how the same kid is doing. It's funny, but since it works in my favor, I'm cool with it. Nate has been asking about his father, and it's going to be tough breaking the news to him, but I'll have to do it at some point. I wasn't strong enough to do it so far, but now that I'm going through with a divorce, it feels a lot more real, and I know I'll have to let the poor guy know that his dad probably won't be around the way he used to be. I know my son's going to be just fine with me, but it still feels awful because he's still just really young and small. It breaks my heart, and I'm hoping that the love from his grandparents and me, of course, can help him feel better, but nothing ever fills the void of a father figure. I know that, and I'm really upset that I'm going to have to put my son through that. My parents have been supportive and have been taking care of Nate, and I guess it helps because they're both retired now and don't have much to do around the house. This keeps all of them occupied, and I can focus on the mediation process and my work without constantly worrying about whether Nate's emotional needs are being met or not. I mean, I do play with him and talk to him every night for about an hour before I tuck him into bed, but I constantly keep feeling guilty like that's not enough for him, even though he's been really brave and hasn't complained about it even once. I just worry about whether I'm being a good mom or not, and I really hope that I am because otherwise I don't know who I am. Update 3. Hi, this is the night before the first mediation session for the custody case. It's around 3 o'clock in the morning right now, and I'm shivering even though it's a summer night and relatively warm because of what my psychotic, crazy, immoral, soon-to-be ex-husband just did. It started when Nate and I were just about to go to bed at around 9:30, but someone rang the doorbell, and my dad was soon in our room telling me to come downstairs because my husband was at the door. He didn't understand what was going on, and neither did I. I told him that I didn't want to speak to him, so he needed to go away. My dad said that he seemed totally out of sorts and suspected that he was either really drunk or on drugs and asked if I wanted to call the police. Before I could even answer that, I heard my husband screaming out my name, and then he started yelling out expletives directed towards me. I freaked out a little, and so did Nate, so I told my dad to call the police immediately. We'd hardly even dialed 911 when we heard the sound of smashing glass from downstairs, followed by my husband laughing loudly, and then the sound of a car pulling out, which meant that he'd left. My mother had already fallen asleep before my husband showed up, but as soon as she heard the sound of the glass breaking, she rushed upstairs to check on me. Thankfully, all of us are unharmed, but we were all really traumatized and didn't dare to move or do anything until we were sure that he wasn't loitering around anymore. We'd heard the car drive away, but we still couldn't believe that this was happening and were scared of even breathing too loudly. When we went down to check the damage, we realized that the psycho had thrown one of the potted plants that my mom keeps outside for decoration into the house through the glass window in the living room, and there was glass all over the floor. After that, we wasted no time in calling the cops and pressing charges against him for destruction of property and also harassment. It turns out he had been drinking and celebrating that he had finally managed to get rid of me with his family in the house that we had lived in for so long, and it was his family's bright idea to go to my house the night before the first mediation meeting to mess with me a little bit. Of course, they hadn't seen this coming, and when we came face to face at the police station, his mother was practically begging me to let this one incident slide and that it was just a prank. It took me a lot of restraint, but I managed to ignore her altogether and came back home. It's been a couple of hours since, but I still haven't been able to bring myself to process any of this. It feels weird that the guy who had been the love of my life for so many years is even capable of doing something as nasty and deranged as this. Nate thankfully had fallen asleep, but even he was very traumatized and kept asking if that was his father's voice that he'd heard. I didn't know how to answer that, so I just didn't say anything, and I think it's better off that way. He doesn't need to know any of this right now, and he can just be a kid. I'm still in shock, but I've told my lawyer what happened, and since I don't believe my husband will be showing up for our meeting with the mediator tomorrow, I'll be filing a restraining order against him first thing in the morning. Update 4. Hi guys. I have great news for everyone here who has bothered to stay with me, commented on my posts and updates, and even reached out to me. My husband and I are divorced now. It took a while, but the court expedited our divorce process since this was a bit of an emergency for me. I also have full custody of my son now, and I don't think I'll ever have to see him or any of his family again, which is something I'm so grateful for. As far as I know, Kim is still in rehab for her mental issues or whatever, and my husband's probably going to be facing time for everything he's done. And I'm going to therapy with my son to undo all the damage that he and his family have done to us and our mental health. We're also going on a mother-son trip soon to cheer the little guy up, and I couldn't be happier about how things turned out. It was rough for a while, but this is a new chapter of my life now, and I'm excited for what the future holds for me. Thank you so much for all the love. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I secretly knew about my husband's affair for months, so I planned a huge surprise party to expose my cheating husband in front of everyone. Then I got into a fistfight with his mistress. I, 28, female, have been married to Greg, 30, male, for the past 3 years. Before that, we were together for another 3 years, so we've actually been together for almost 6 years now. We met each other through friends and hit it off instantly. So far, we've had a good relationship, and I did not think that he had any reason to be unhappy with me. Things between us have only been weird for the past couple of months after he took a job out of state earlier this year. We live in Alaska, but about 10 months back, he told me that he had been offered a really big project in Pennsylvania. He chose to tell me about it a week before he was supposed to leave. He confessed to me that he had been offered the project and had already signed all the paperwork and stuff to take up that job before even discussing things with me, and he had not brought it up until the last minute on purpose. The reason for that was because during our second year of being together, there was a certain period of time of around 3 months when we had to do long distance because his grandmother was really sick and he and his family had flown down to London to visit her and be beside her during the last months of her life. He had told me that he would be gone for 1 week, but that turned into 3 months, and it had been really difficult for both of us. So I was a bit skeptical about the long distance, but that was different because that had just been during the second year of us being together. But now we had been with each other for so long and we were literally married, so I felt like he should have at least discussed things with me. It's not like I would have said that he shouldn't go, because of course if it was a big business opportunity, he should have taken it up and I never would have stopped him from doing something that he wants to. The only thing that I thought that I deserved was a discussion at the very least. Anyway, I did not want to fight with him and make this a big deal before he was supposed to leave, so I did not tell him how disappointed and hurt I was at the time and spent that last week before he left trying to come to terms with the fact that for the next 10 months, I would have to be completely on my own. I know that as a grown woman I should be fine with these things, but it was still a very daunting thought. I did not let any of that show and I sent him off quite happily because I wanted him to feel good about his decision and not want him to worry about how I'd feel after he was gone. It was hard for me to adjust because I hadn't even had any time to mentally prepare myself, which I would have had if he had told me about it earlier. But eventually, in a few weeks, I got into the groove of living by myself. We would get on phone calls almost daily for the first few months, but then something changed and he started giving me the cold shoulder after around 3 months. He started acting very weird. Our calls were less frequent, he started leaving me on read for hours, and I just couldn't figure out what was going wrong. I kept trying to get him to talk to me, but he would just insist that he was busy and exhausted from work and that was it. He did come to visit me around the 4th month, but even when he came back, I felt like in spite of being with me, he was not really there with me. He just came back for 2 days, and even during those 2 days, he was on his phone half of the time, and I was very upset about that. I had thought that things would improve after his visit and we'd be able to do better after he came to see me. But that did not happen, and after 6 months of being apart, I finally decided to call him and confront him about his weird behavior and told him that I was feeling very sidelined. I thought that he would care about my feelings, but instead we got into a really bad fight on the phone and he told me that I was being too insecure and needy and that apparently this was just how I had been behaving the last time and was exactly the reason why he hadn't told me that we would have to go through a long-distance relationship because he knew that I would freak out and start getting needy again. That wasn't true because the last time that we were doing the long-distance thing, it was both of us who were suffering and not just me. His aunt used to live in England, so there was also a time difference that we had to deal with, and both of us were feeling weird at that point in time the last time that this happened. So it was very unfair of him to put it all on me, and after that, I decided that was not going to put an effort into talking to him, and I was very hurt. But 2 weeks after that fight, he came to visit me again and we were able to sort things out. I thought that things would finally start going back to normal, but after he went back, I received a huge shock when a friend of mine contacted me to tell me that she had caught him having an affair and even had photographic evidence. This friend of mine had been in Pennsylvania to visit her husband's family since he was from there, and they had been at a restaurant when she saw Greg cheating. Thankfully, he had not been able to notice her and she had sneakily managed to capture some pictures of him, which were undeniable proof of him cheating. He was sitting in a booth with his girlfriend getting cozy with her and snuggling in a very public place. I thought it was disgusting, not just because he was cheating, but it was just so weird to be doing things like that at a restaurant. Anyway, I couldn't even bring myself to believe it when I saw those pictures for the first time, and when I called up my friend to ask her what this was all about. She finally confirmed the news for me, and I was in denial for a few days. I thought about confronting Greg, but I knew that he would also just deny it and was no point in doing so. I just did not know what to do when I didn't even work because I was so heartbroken. I couldn't bring myself to tell anybody about it because I felt like I was a fool, and for some reason, I was ashamed of myself, as if any of this was my fault. But after almost 2 weeks of mourning, I decided that I was going to get my life sorted out. During those 2 weeks, any time that my husband would text me, I would pretend like everything was normal and try really hard not to let anything show. He was not calling me anymore, and even when he would text, it would feel more like he was doing it out of obligation rather than because he actually wanted to, and now I finally knew why. To be honest, I was relieved that he did not call me during those 2 weeks because if I had heard his voice, I might have broken down and confronted him. However, I did not do that, and I started getting my life in order because I knew that I was going to leave. I started separating my finances, and when he asked about it, I just made up some excuse about creating a new account in a different bank for better credit or something, and he bought it. Within a few days, I had even packed up all my things and had moved into a new apartment. But whenever my friends and family would ask if they could come over, I would meet them at my old house so nobody would get suspicious. For the past 6 months after I had found out about his affair, I had been trying really hard to make everything seem normal and did not let anybody realize that I knew what was going on with Greg. Even the friend who had told me about the affair in the first place, I had requested her to keep quiet about it because I did not want this to reach other people, and she respected what I had asked her. I had something huge planned in mind, and last week I finally got to put it into action. Around 3 weeks ago, Greg finally told me that he had been able to wrap up the project and was coming back home. When I heard that, I was thrilled because now I could finally throw him a homecoming party that he would never be able to forget. So as soon as he told me that he was coming back home, I started planning everything, and I even told him that when he landed, I wanted him to come straight to the hotel that I had booked and not go home. He tried to argue with me and said that he would be too tired and stuff, but I told him that I was not going to take no for an answer and basically just forced him to come directly to the hotel after his flight landed because I did not want to waste any time. I convinced him that this was going to be a big surprise for him, and eventually, I got him to agree. Then I invited all his friends, family, and coworkers to the party that I was throwing in his honor. Most of them agreed to attend, and the ones that didn't, I convinced them to be present on FaceTime because I said that this was really important for me. I even invited a few of my own friends and family because I wanted them to know what was happening. Finally, last week I had the party and it was a total success. The guests had already arrived by the time that his flight had landed, and we only had to wait for around 15 minutes for him to show up at the hotel, since I had picked one that was closest to the airport, so we wouldn't waste any time. When he showed up, everybody was thrilled, and there was a lot of hugging and crying from his family and some of his friends. They were really happy and welcomed him warmly, and I was the last person to go up to him and hug him, and I even gave him a peck on the cheek. Then I moved on to the speech that I had been preparing for and talked about how long we had been married, how great our relationship had been, and how much we loved each other, and throughout all of it, he had a really sweet smile on his face, but he did not know what was about to come. Towards the end of my speech, I announced that even after all of this, after going through so much together and in spite of being together for so long, Greg had still found reasons to cheat on me, and that's when everybody went silent because obviously, they were all confused, including Greg, because I could tell from his face that he definitely had not seen this coming. After a few seconds of silence, I decided to do the big reveal and unfurled the banners, which were basically just humongous photos of him cheating which had been printed on the banners all around the room. I even had some waiters bring in the massive cake that I ordered, which read, "Welcome home, cheater." Yes, I've known about this for the past 6 months. In frosting, and I thought it was pretty hilarious. Unfortunately, nobody shared my sense of humor, and once I was done with this, everyone was incredibly awkward, and that included my friends and family too. Greg was literally speechless. He had nothing to say, and when he finally did find the words, he said that I was sick in the head for planning something like this and executing it. He told me that I was deranged and that I needed serious psychiatric help because it was not normal for somebody to act like they were okay for 6 months and then do something like this. Then he ran out of the party along with his parents and the rest of his family, who all kept glaring at me as they walked out. After that, pretty much everybody in the room started leaving and nobody really even said goodbye, but I didn't mind because what I had set out to do, I had accomplished it. The only people who stayed were a couple of my friends and my family members, who then came over to me to comfort me, but I had already cried all the tears that I had to and I had nothing to say, so I just had that cake with them because I paid good money for it, and once we were done with dinner, all of us went back home. I obviously went back to my own apartment because my old house was not my home anymore. It's been 1 week since then and I've filed for a divorce. I did that literally the morning after the party. I did not think that I would hear from Greg, and I knew that he would obviously not contest the divorce, but 2 days back, when he received the divorce papers, he decided to reach out to me and sent me an email saying that he was really disappointed with the way that I had chosen to deal with the situation, and said that if I had found out about his affair, I should have had the decency to confront him about it instead of trying to do something so extreme and disturbing. He told me that he hasn't been able to sleep or eat because of the humiliation that he has faced, and nobody is speaking to him, not even his friends and family, and he is blaming me for all of this because I could have just kept things private instead of airing out our dirty laundry, but now I've gone ahead and ruined him. So, AITA for throwing a homecoming party just to expose my cheating husband? Update 1. So before I begin, thank you so much for all the comments. I had no idea that people would actually be so appreciative of what I did. That was really cool of you guys. Now that the party is over and everything that I've been planning for the past couple of months is done, the reality of the situation is kind of settling in. My marriage is actually over and I'm really getting a divorce. It's been 1 week since the party and I feel strange, but in a good way, to be honest. I think I have made my peace with the fact that my marriage is over. I did that really long back, and now it's just the legal formalities that are left to be dealt with. My friends and family have been really supportive of me, and I am very grateful for that. My parents have been checking in on me and calling almost every day, and my friends have been texting quite frequently just to make sure that I'm doing fine, and I appreciate that. But I don't understand why Greg is also trying to check on me. After he had sent that last message, I had blocked him everywhere, but now he has created a new account on social media just to text me, and I haven't blocked that one yet because I'm curious as to what's going to happen with that. He keeps texting me asking me if I'm doing fine emotionally or not. He also keeps telling me that he's going to sign the divorce papers in a couple of days, but before that, he wants to meet me in person and just have one last discussion with me for some closure, because we've been married for quite a while and we've been together for even longer, so we owe this to each other. I don't know how to tell him that after what he did. I don't know him jack. Anyway, he has been sending me these messages in hopes that maybe I will respond to him, but I've been holding out on that so far. Part of me really wants to meet him just for the sake of it, but I know that's probably not good for me. I have discussed it with my parents, and they think that it's not necessary since I already know that he has cheated on me and there's not much to talk about, and if it's about the divorce, we can talk about it when we are negotiating with a mediator. I don't need to meet him in person without a lawyer for that. But I'm still just kind of curious about what he really wants to talk to me about, so in spite of all the advice that I've been given so far, I might still entertain his request because honestly, I think I'm over him, and no matter what he says or does, I'm not going to return to him, so I don't think I have anything to worry about as such. Update 2. Hey, so I didn't exactly go and meet him, but I did speak to him. It has been 2 weeks since I filed for divorce, and I really just need him to respond to the petition so that we can get the proceedings started, and if that happens, we can wrap this up as quickly as possible. Just for that, I texted him back on the account that he was messaging me from and told him that I did not want to see him in person, but he could call me. I had unblocked his number just for that purpose, so if he really wanted to speak to me and if it was an emergency, he could talk to me on the phone because I was not going to go out of my way just to see him in person. This is the message that I sent him, and within half an hour, he replied saying that he would really rather do this in person than on a phone call, and I got a little annoyed, so I told him that if he was going to be like that, then I wasn't going to talk to him at all and would block this account as well. Within seconds, he had replied saying that he was going to call me. There was no need for me to get upset. It was very weird for me that he was still talking to me in the same way that we used to speak to each other before all of this had happened, but anyway. He then proceeded to call me, and when we spoke, he told me that he just wanted to apologize for everything that had happened and that he had never meant for me to find out. He explained to me that while he was living away, he had discovered that his ex from high school was also living in the same city, and she had asked him to meet with her several times and he had declined. But then he just got so lonely there without me that he couldn't help but agree to meet her. He did not actually have any intention of cheating on me at first and claimed that it just happened out of the blue. But once he had hooked up with her the first time, he couldn't bring himself to stop because he felt like it was necessary for him to be with somebody just to drive away the loneliness. He explained to me that he did not have any real feelings for the other girl and that it was just to cope with his loneliness and that the person he really just missed a lot even while he was with his ex was me, nobody else. But then after he started cheating on me, he started feeling guilty as well, and that's why he became very distant, and he knew that it was his mistake, but he just wanted me to know that he was still in love with me and he regretted everything that he had done, but if I would just think about this from his perspective and maybe try to forgive him, he would really appreciate that. While he was talking to me on the phone and telling me these things, I really just didn't know what to say to him. The sheer audacity to tell me that he was in love with me and he missed me even when he was cheating on me was astounding. I couldn't imagine somebody saying these things and thinking that they were completely sensible and logical things. I was speechless, to be honest, so there was complete silence on my end while he was talking. I was feeling angry, obviously, but I was also feeling amused that he thought that this was going to work and that I was going to cancel the divorce and move back in with him, so I let him talk for a while, and then when he finally went silent, I just said one word, "Okay." And then I hung up on him abruptly without even giving him a chance to process what I just said. I think it was the perfect response for him because that's really how I felt about whatever he had said. He had said whatever he wanted to tell me and I was okay with it. Fair enough, right? He had just confessed that he was still in love with me. It was not necessary for me to feel the same way about him, and if he really loved me, he would understand that and also not have cheated on me. Anyway, I think it was a very satisfying line, and after that phone call, I blocked him immediately so that he wouldn't have the opportunity to speak to me again, and I'm not gonna lie, I was low-key proud of myself for dealing with it like this without any drama or any confrontation. So after that conversation, I called up my friends and I told them about what had happened, and we had a really good laugh because I'm sure that Greg had been expecting some lengthy conversations and a heart-to-heart discussion about what to do in the future. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, babe, but if you cheat once, you're always going to be a cheater, and I don't need to forgive you for anything or even take into consideration the fact that you still claim to love me. And right now, the only thing that I'm kind of confused about still is why exactly he had wanted to get back together with me and said such things. He looked pretty happy with the other girl in the pictures that I had received, so that part did not make sense to me either way. It doesn't matter anymore since we are done, and I'm just hoping that the divorce comes through soon. Update 3. So it has been 3 days since I last spoke to Greg, and today I found out that he has finally responded to the petition. He is not going to be contesting the divorce. He has also agreed to certain terms of the divorce, but he believes that he should get to keep the house as it is and not be taking anything with me. I don't think that it's fair because most of the decor of the house and some furniture items were purchased by me and they're quite expensive. We have a couple of paintings and art installations that I want to keep for myself, which are in his house right now, so we are going to meet with a mediator for that and see how it goes. I'm hoping that it works out in my favor as well. He's already cheated on me, and I don't think he should get to keep the art in his house as well. Anyway, that's the only bone of contention between us right now, but apart from that, he has agreed to most of the terms, and my lawyer and I are setting up a meeting with a court-appointed mediator in a couple of days. I just want to get this over with as quickly as possible, because right now, I just want to move on with my life and avoid the drama. The past couple of months have been draining, to say the least. I have also been hearing gossip that he has quit his job and has moved back here, which might explain why he did not want to get divorced, because that would also mean spending a lot of money on the lawyer, and he probably wants to save right now. My friends have heard a lot of gossips that he has been planning on starting a new business, and that's why he's come back after quitting his job, but now, because of the impending divorce, all of his plans have been put on hold, and he's really upset about it and can't stop talking crap about me. Good for him and good for me too. I think I made the right choice by not giving him the chance to speak to me in person because I'm kind of soft-hearted. If I had seen him in person then it might not have been as easy as it was for me to outright reject him, and I might have melted a bit. I'm just glad that I chose to have the conversation on a phone call and avoided the puppy eyes. I'm also thankful that I don't have to worry about money like he does because I've just been promoted at work and that was just what the doctor ordered. I'm thinking about having a little get-together at my house for my close friends just so we can celebrate this and also my independence. It's been a while since the party and well, that event was not exactly for us to enjoy, but now I feel like I need a breather and I have an occasion to celebrate, so why not? Update 4. Hi, so a couple of days ago, Greg and I finally met with a mediator. The first meeting went well enough, but that's not what I'm going to talk about here. After we were done, we were leaving and I was heading towards my car when I realized that his car was parked a little distance away. I could see the girl from the photos, his ex-girlfriend, but I'm guessing now his current, glaring at me from there. I tried to avoid even looking at her because I did not want any drama, but then she walked right over to me as I was getting inside my car and grabbed me by the arm and pulled me out, which really pissed me off. So I shoved her and told her to back off. Things got a little heated and she told me that she couldn't even imagine why Greg had been with me in the first place since I was as ugly as I was stupid. She then out of nowhere brought up the fact that I was partying while Greg was suffering and said that I should be ashamed of myself. She was referring to the house party that I had a couple of days back to celebrate my promotion at work, which had nothing to do with Greg because we didn't even talk about him there, but she had just assumed that it was about him. I can't blame her. The poor thing is probably just as narcissistic as my ex. Anyway, I told her to leave me alone and flipped her off, but she thought that it would be a good idea to push me and get physical. We got into a bit of a brawl and Greg had to intervene and pull us off of each other. I'm happy to say that I got a few scratches on her face, but she was able to slap me once. My lawyer was standing nearby and had the good sense to call the police, and when they showed up, I immediately decided that I wanted to press charges, so that's what I did, and all of the other people who had been standing by also agreed that she was the one who initiated the fight and I was just defending myself. As she was being taken away, I told her that she would probably be better off not defending a man who had still been trying to get back with me until a few days back, and if she wanted to, she could have my leftovers, but I would not recommend it to anybody. She was glaring daggers at me but also looked confused when I said that. The last thing that I remember is Greg screaming at me for ruining his life, but I didn't hear much of his rant because I just got in my car and drove back home. Now whatever happens is their problem. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Ex-wife called me crying because I told her new husband that she slept with me right before their wedding after she mocked me for my pathetic life decisions cause I couldn't support her. Hi, so I am 28, and my ex-wife, Kathy, is 27, She recently got married to her boyfriend of 3 years, Jonathan, who is 32, They have been married for 6 months. Kathy and I had been married quite a long time ago, and that marriage had only lasted for a year. We got married right out of college, as soon as we graduated, and it was a very small and intimate ceremony. We had been together since high school, since our sophomore year to be more precise. We had even attended the same college, so getting married just seemed like the right step to take. But even though we had been together for so long before that, things didn't work out between us. We were fighting almost every day, and about a year into our marriage, I decided that I could not do this anymore and I wanted to leave. Maybe it might have been a hasty decision since I had not exactly fallen out of love with her, but I was just sick of fighting with her, and she's really proud. So when I told her that I wanted a divorce, she did not even try to fight to stay with me, and she just said that I could go if I wanted to, and we ended up getting divorced. Both of us were really immature and were definitely not ready for marriage because that's a big deal. We had a lot of growing up to do, and unfortunately, I don't think we would have been able to do it if we had stayed together at that point in time. But during the divorce, she realized that she was pregnant, and we had to factor that in as well. I had thought that we would never talk to each other after we got divorced, but the fact that we were going to have a baby changed everything. She wanted to be a mother, and I definitely wanted to be a father. We tried to work past our differences, but honestly, I thought that it would be better for us to part ways instead. She wanted us to cancel the divorce proceedings and try to work things out and get help from a professional, but I was determined to leave. I had made up my mind, and I was not going to back down. So I told her that we could have shared custody of the child and try to co-parent the baby. We could even live close to each other during the initial stages because at that time, the baby needed their mother the most. But she was not happy about any of it, and she just wanted to continue our marriage. So we had a lot of disagreements during that time, and things were very difficult. But eventually, we were able to come to a conclusion and we decided that we would be taking turns with our child and we would do our best to keep the peace for the sake of our future child. I can understand why she wanted to stay married, but honestly, I had only gotten married because I thought that was what people should do. She had been talking about getting married ever since we were in our second year of college. Even though I did not feel emotionally ready for that kind of commitment, I wanted to make a life of my own before I settled down with somebody, but I did not want to break her heart. And I knew that if I had told her that I did not feel ready to get married, she probably would have left me or we would have at least ended up fighting. So I decided to just get married for the sake of it. But after a year of being married to her, I realized that this was not my cup of tea and I wanted to make my own way in life. So that was the reason why I wanted to get a divorce. And after I realized that we were going to have a baby, that resolve strengthened even more because I myself was not even happy in this marriage. So I did not think that it would be appropriate to stay married and then bring a baby into the world and then put him through all of our unhappiness. If I was not happy with her and she was not happy with me, then it would have been better for us to part ways and try to co-parent our child peacefully instead of putting him through bad situations during his childhood. Having divorced parents from such a young age would have its own set of challenges, I will give you that, but at least he would not grow up in a troubled household. That was my reasoning. She believed that we should have stuck together and stayed married because she thought that that would have been the best for the baby. But anyway, that's all in the past. With great difficulty, I managed to get her to agree to my terms, and we got divorced, but we continued to stay in touch for the sake of our baby. And we still have continued that arrangement. Our son spends half the month at Kathy's place and the other half at mine. I try to be there for him as much as I can, and so does she. I can't say that we are friends. I know she still has a lot of animosity towards me, and rightfully so, but I did my best and I do have a lot of love for her in my heart. But I wanted her to be able to have her own life as well. I was aware that she would never be able to truly be happy with me since my heart was not in the marriage. I loved her, but I wanted other things in life, and I was just not ready for marriage. That was my mistake. I acknowledged that and I accept it. Anyway, after our divorce, I was still there for her in a platonic capacity and as a father. I accompanied her to all of her appointments, and when our son was born, I was there with her every step of the way. I even stayed with her for a couple of days to make sure that she was all right. I did everything that a good father and a good partner should do. But in spite of all of that, she would tell everybody about how I had abandoned her when she needed me the most and made me seem like some monster. Most of my friends stopped speaking to me because of her, but I didn't even bring that up with her. I continued to do my duties as a partner and a father. I accepted it because I knew that I had wronged her by marrying her when I was not ready to do it. That was not something that I should have done, and I figured that this was my punishment for doing that, and I was okay with it. There was nothing much that I could do about the situation because if I stopped speaking to her at that point and picked a fight with her for telling all our friends such things about me, it would only prove her words to be true. The strange thing was that even after she was going around telling our friends such things about me, she was always nice to me whenever we would meet. To be honest, I actually used to feel like she was willing to get back together with me even though she had been spreading lies about me. It was quite confusing if I'm being honest because on the one hand she was trying to ruin my reputation in front of our friends, and on the other hand, she was always nice to me to my face and acted like she could not live without me and still loved me. Not knowing what to make of it, I just decided to focus on my work. And after our son was a couple of months old, she went back to work and we started meeting less frequently. She started seeing other men about a year after our divorce, and I would hear from a couple of my friends who had still bothered to stay in touch with me that she was back to dating. I won't say that it didn't hurt me because even though I was the one who had filed and pressed on for a divorce, I still love her. But I did not say anything to her about it because I wanted her to be happy, and I had made my choice. So even if I was unhappy, I just had to suck it up and deal with it. In my defense, both of us were very young and confused about our emotions, so that's why things were the way that they were. She would always make a huge deal out of her dates as well, so everybody would be able to find out about it. Then, after a few months, she realized that I had not commented about it, so she decided to bring it up with me herself and told me that she was now dating other people. So she was sorry if I felt bad about it, but she just wanted to tell me about it so I did not have to find out from other people. She knew quite well that I did not say anything about it, and I told her that I was cool with it. She seemed a little disappointed when I did not pursue the topic further and just left with my son. It was like she wanted me to talk to her about it and ask her if she had moved on and stuff. Things were always very hot and cold and confusing between us. I think that much is obvious. Now, after that conversation, she stopped making such a big deal out of her dates on social media, and I knew that it definitely had something to do with me showing her that I did not care about it. And then one day, she came to pick our son up from my apartment, but it started raining, so we decided to invite her in, so she could spend the evening with us until it stopped raining outside. I did it as a courtesy, and by then it had already been almost close to 2 years since we got divorced, so I thought it would be okay. We got to talking, and our son was napping in the other room. After one point, we were reminiscing about our past, and out of nowhere she came to me. And I still loved her even though I was not with her anymore. So we ended up sleeping together. She spent the night at my place, and it felt good. But the next day, she left before breakfast or before I had even woken up and had taken our son with her. She messaged me to tell me that it had been a mistake, and she did not want to get back together with me anymore. I was shattered, but that was her choice, and I respected that. I accepted the fact that this had just been a one-time thing and tried not to think too much of it and chalked it up to the weather outside and the fact that I had invited her in. Also, she must have been lonely after our divorce because I know that I had been. At that age, there were not a lot of people who were looking to date single parents. There were a lot of things, and I decided not to make a big deal out of it, and we went back to our cordial relationship as parents, not partners. I started distancing myself from her after that, and I only started talking to her about our son. Nothing else. She tried to talk to me and get back to normal several times after that incident, but I rejected every attempt of hers to try and get back on good terms with me. And then she started dating Jonathan. He was a good guy. I knew him since he was the older brother of one of our common friends from school. I was happy for her because I knew that Jonathan was a solid man, and he would definitely keep her happy. After they got together, our interactions decreased even more, and we were fine with it because now she had somebody and I was trying to move on from her and get on with my life and career. So over the course of the past 3 years, we had drastically reduced our interactions. Jonathan was always nice to me whenever I would visit them to either pick up or drop off my son, and that's why I feel especially bad for what I did to the guy. Just a couple of weeks before his wedding, you guys have probably already been able to guess where I'm going with this. I'm not proud of it, and I think it's one of the worst things that I have done in my entire life. But yes, I slept with Kathy one last time before she got married. I guess she had cold feet or something, but she just showed up at my apartment a couple of weeks before her wedding. I think there must have been just 1 month to go until the big day, and I definitely did not expect her to show up at my house at that point because we had made it a point to never speak to each other unless it had something to do with our son. And at that time, our son was at her place, so I was very confused when she showed up that day. But it was really late at night and I was curious, so I opened the door to her, and she literally just fell into my arms. She was crying and telling me that she really missed me and that she had made a huge mistake and confessed to me that everything that she had been doing for the past couple of years was all to get me back. She told me that she had never been able to move on, but she knew that I wanted different things from life than her and we were not compatible together. And even if we did end up getting back together, it was very unlikely that it would be any different from the first time that we were married. She was just very confused about what to do, and so she had been playing mind games with me and acting all hot and cold. So that explained a lot of things. I confessed to her that I had not been able to move on either, and I was very confused about my feelings too. We ended up kissing, and one thing led to another, and before we knew it, we had done it. I felt really guilty about it later, and I still feel bad, but I loved Kathy, and I really thought that after that incident, at least she would dump Jonathan and be with me instead. But once again, that did not happen. She woke up the next morning and started crying, and I had to console her. She told me that she loved Jonathan, and she was just scared that this would not work out. Once again, it broke my heart that she actually loved him, and she was just using me to distract herself from the fact that she was getting married and she was so scared. She begged me to keep this a secret because she did not want to jeopardize her relationship with Jonathan. And hooking up with me had only made her realize that she actually loved him because if she did not, she would not have felt guilty about it. And she required me to lie to everybody as well and never tell anyone about this incident. I honestly did not want to be the guy she kept on the back burner. I also did not want to ruin her relationship because I was sure that I was not going to gain anything from it, so I told her that I was not going to tell anyone and she left. She got married and that was it. I was very disappointed with the way that things turned out because I actually had started to believe that she was going to come back eventually because at this age, I'm pretty much ready to get remarried and I still love her. I have never been able to move on. But after she got married to Jonathan, it seemed unlikely, and after what happened a couple of days ago, it seems even more unlikely that we are going to end up together. No amount of love and affection is going to change the fact that she's really not a good person. I realized that a long time ago, but it just took a lot of time for me to come to terms with that. I had always held out hope that maybe she would change, but I don't think that's going to happen. I might be a terrible person as well, but at least I don't hurt other people and go out of my way to mess with their feelings, and she definitely does that. She probably enjoys it as well, which is why she did everything that she did in the past. It's all definitely sick and twisted, and I don't deny the fact that I encouraged it and engaged with her, but she is always the one who initiates things and I don't think I can be blamed for most of it because she knows about my feelings towards her, and it's her responsibility not to take advantage of it. But anyway, a couple of days ago, she invited me to my son's birthday party and I decided to attend. Usually whichever parent our son is staying with at the time celebrates his birthday and after the other parent gets him, they celebrate it separately. Our son is pretty lucky that way, he gets to have 2 birthdays. But anyway, this year, she thought that it would be better for us to have one birthday party because he was getting older and it was getting too much. So I agreed to split the cost of the party with her and be there for him. But when I got to the party, I realized that her energy the day was quite off, and she started making jokes at my expense as soon as I walked in. I got there pretty late after work. Most of the guests had arrived by that time. So the first thing she did was take digs at me about how I was late to my son's birthday party, and that's what happens when you put work over everything. Obviously, that was a thinly veiled attempt to insult me for our divorce because I had to put work over her. Then she started making fun of my receding hairline, which is so surprising because there are 100 things about her that I can make fun of when it comes to appearances, and I did not see that coming because it was quite embarrassing for me. Also, we are grown adults. I don't think it's very appropriate to pick on each other like kindergarten kids. At that point, Jonathan joined the conversation and told me that he thought it was because of all the stress that I put myself through, and then they started suggesting that I take some time off from work and try to actually live life because it was very apparent that I was not living well and I had made some pretty bad life choices. When I asked them to elaborate, something that I should not have done because there was no need to do it at that place and time, they started telling me all the reasons that they thought that I had screwed my life up. I shouldn't even have asked because I knew that this was not going to end well and was going to be very embarrassing for me. But then they started listing out completely stupid reasons like saying that my first divorce with my ex-wife was a bad choice because clearly it did not lead to anything good in my life because I was still single, and then putting work above every single thing in my life was an even worse choice because now I was getting late to my own son's birthday parties and I also lost opportunities to spend time with my family because of it. I don't think it took into consideration the fact that I had to work. Unlike them, I don't come from a very rich family and I have to pave my own way. I did not say anything, but I was just shocked that Kathy was saying these things and Jonathan was actually supporting her. At that point, I started feeling less bad about what I had done a couple of months ago. After they were done talking to me and went to entertain the other guests, I decided to write a little note on my birthday present because I was pissed and I wanted to let Kathy know that I was not saying anything at the party because of my son. But the next time that she tried to say such things, I would not shy away from revealing her secrets. I did not write much. I just wrote, "I still know your secret and I know you don't want anybody else to learn about it, so watch your words around me." And then I snuck out of the party and went back home. I did not want to see Kathy and I had already spoken to my son. He was busy having fun with his friends as he should be, so I know that I was not missed. After that, the next morning I received a call from Kathy around 9 o'clock and she was crying. Obviously, she had read the note and she told me that she was really sorry about the things that she had said. She was just upset with me because I was late and our son had been asking about me several times before I even showed up, and they even had to cut the cake without me because I was late. But it was not even my fault. I had left work on time, but there was really bad traffic on my way back home and that's why I got late. Not because I was prioritizing work over my son. I did not appreciate what they were saying, and especially the fact that she was saying such things after the kind of relationship that we have had. So she started begging me not to bring this up again. But I had a realization the previous night that I was screwing my life up not because of the reasons that they said but because of the fact that I had given Kathy repeated chances to change. I did not promise anything to her on the phone, and I just told her that I was busy and I would talk to her later. But now I am considering actually going up to Jonathan and letting him know the truth because I don't think I want to live with this anymore. It's weighing on my conscience as well. All I want to know is, what if I told my ex-wife's husband the truth about her? Update 1. It has been a week since the party and I have been no contact with Kathy. Also, I did it and I sent a message about how Kathy had cheated on him before the wedding. I think that really helped me because I feel a lot more relieved than I usually do. It feels like a huge burden has been taken off of my chest, and I can finally breathe again. After I sent that message and the proof of her being at my place that night a month before the wedding, I blocked Jonathan and Kathy. I know that I will have to meet her eventually when I go to her place to pick up my son a couple of weeks later. But for now, I don't have to speak to her. I have also told everybody I know to keep her out of our conversations. I did what I had to do, and I am not going to be made to feel guilty or sorry about it. I shared my side of the story, and I spoke my truth. I am done with that episode. I don't want to keep discussing it, and I don't want to know what she's going through right now because I'm sure it's nothing compared to what Jonathan and I went through because of her indecisiveness. And honestly, we don't even have a lot of friends in common anymore. I'm sure that people who are just her friends will definitely try to come and make me feel guilty about it. But as of now, nothing has happened yet. I sent that message about 4 days ago, and up until this point, I have not received any messages or threats. So I'm figuring that they have not told people yet. But I know that when that news comes out, people are going to try their best. I'm mentally prepared for that. I'm not going to let it happen. Update 2. Just as I had expected, the news of their divorce is now broken. It has been 2 weeks since I sent that message to Jonathan. I have not heard from him. I don't think he has anything left to say to me, because what do you even say to the guy who hooked up with your wife? But anyway, she sent her cronies after me soon after the news broke. I have a bunch of her family members and her friends texting me, telling me that I ruined their marriage and that I am a sociopath. They believed that I did this because I wanted her all to myself, but they could not be further from the truth. I just did this to get rid of my own guilt. Maybe it was her fault, but it was my mistake too, and I need to own up to the things that I do. I want to be a good father, and before that, I have to be able to be a good person. The only person that I feel sorry for in this situation is Jonathan. He is a really nice guy. He did not deserve any of this. But at least I told him about everything, and now he can leave. He can find somebody better for himself. I'm glad that he's getting a divorce. He deserves better. Maybe I don't. I dug my grave the day that I married Kathy, even though I was not ready for it. Both of us are terrible people, and I guess we deserve each other. Update 3. So it's been almost a month since they announced their divorce. I went over to Kathy's place last week to pick our son up, and she didn't even bother to come to the door. Our son had no idea what was going on, and he told me that his mother had been in a state ever since she and Jonathan had that big fight. He was the one who told me that now every day his grandmother, Kathy's mother, comes to take care of him, cook for everyone, and keep the house in order because Kathy has stopped going out to work and just spends the entire day sleeping in her room. Obviously, the kid is very confused and has no idea what's going on. Nobody has told him anything. He keeps asking me why Uncle Jonathan left the house and the two of them are fighting, and I have no idea what to tell him. It's heartbreaking. I guess I feel kind of guilty, but I know that I did the right thing, so I don't need to. It's just hard for me as a father. Her friends and family are still texting me about it and trying to make me look like the bad guy, but I'm not bothered about what they think of me. Update 4. Hey guys, I realized that I have not updated this thread in almost a year now, so sorry about that. Kathy is divorced now and has been for a couple of months. She is in therapy and is living in the suburbs now, for hours away from where I live. Earlier, we used to live close by because of our son and to make the commute easier for him, but not anymore. She moved away to create distance from everything, especially me. She told me a couple of days after her divorce proceedings began that she still loves me deep down, but she has a lot of issues to work through and we are not good for each other right now. If we are really meant to end up together, life will find a way. But for now, we have to stay separately. I guess that's true. We have even modified our custody arrangements so our son can spend the weekend with her and the rest of the week with me. I still love her, but I hope she gets better with time, and I hope I do too, because I'm also going to therapy. I'm trying to work everything out. Maybe both of us will be better one day. We might even be happy in the future. Maybe with each other and maybe not, but I'm gonna try and get there somehow. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I, 16M, have a 4-month-old daughter and my GF wants to go to college. I am worried. Before anyone says anything, yes, I knew about condoms, I was just dumb. My parents divorced when I was 10, but I lived primarily with my mom. Tiffany, 16, parents are together. When our parents found out she was pregnant, her parents kicked her out and my mom kicked me out. So now we live with my dad. During the pregnancy, my dad took my mom to court and got primary sole custody. I know what this means because I had to go to court for my daughter. He sued Tiffany's parents for legal guardianship, and they now pay child support for her. They are pissed and refuse to talk to us. I am in my bedroom and my daughter is in her bedroom, and my ex is in the guest room that is now hers. My dad made a deal with us. We live with him until 18 with no rent payment. At 18, we need to decide what it is we do. I wasn't really that good in school and Tiffany is an A student, so I took my GED and my dad got me into welding school. I finish in 2 months. I also work full-time, so I do welding school at night. Tiffany goes to school and works on the weekends at Wendy's. This whole thing is a huge ordeal. We literally have no life. My dad helps but not that much because he feels it's our responsibility, which I agree with, but still sucks. I work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. at a warehouse and go to school from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tiffany is home by 2:30 and picks up our daughter from daycare. We help each other a lot and then I head off to school, and she stays with her at home until I get home and do it all over again day after day. When our daughter was born, my dad made us go to court. We have 50-50 and I don't pay child support because she lives with us. Because I work full-time, I can get health care for my daughter and myself, and that sucks. It costs me $300 a month and daycare is $400 a week. Literally, Tiffany works just so we can pay for daycare and I pay for everything else. When we are short for cash, my dad will help because he sees we are trying. My dad has been our rock. When we are tired and exhausted, he will step in and give us a break here and there, but he makes sure we have everything we need and keeps us motivated. Tiffany wants to apply to college soon and I am worried because I don't want to keep living with her and I don't think I can keep our daughter full-time as a welder working 12-hour shifts. But she says she will start at a community college and work but wants to stay with us, living together, since it's easier since I will be working and it will be best for us to stay with my dad. But my dad said at 18 we have to pay rent. She doesn't mind, but I don't want to keep living with her because we aren't together. I am unsure how to tell her this. My dad thinks she should stay with us as long as she is a full-time student to finish her degree because I'm already getting my career. I just feel that all this is unfair because the burden is on me. I guess I am ranting because I am scared and unsure of what all this means. Edit. I guess my thing about her living with us is that we are more like siblings now. We get along and joke and stuff, but since she is my ex, I feel weirded out by it. Maybe I need to take a breather since everyone is saying it's a good thing. Also, I needed to hear it from other people and not just my dad, and he is pretty solid and I should thank him. Maybe take him for dinner or something. Second edit. My dad isn't kicking us out at 18, but he wants us to be realistic to the world and pay bills. The money he gets from Tiffany's parents, he just gives it to her. She is saving up money for a car and uses other money for her specific foods and clothes. Before I became a dad, my dad always wanted me to live with him at 18 and figure it out and stay with him and save money to buy a house. When he found out I was going to be a dad, he wasn't mad but disappointed and said everything has to change. He also is paying for my welding school of $20K and he bought me my car, but I do have to pay my own insurance. He does help as long as he sees we are trying and not being lazy. When school recently started, he took my daughter to daycare every morning and helped Tiffany with a routine to get schoolwork done. Final edit. I have to get to class now. Tiffany wants to be a nurse or PA, but the college told her nursing school is hard to get into and it's best to have a high school diploma, which is why she is still in high school and working the weekends. But someone mentioned a dual thing for community college and we will look into that. So we couldn't get daycare assistance because we are minors and they used my dad's salary. The funny thing is, I can't open a checking account for myself because I am a minor, but the bank allowed me to open a children's account for my daughter because I am her parent, lol. The irony. I read every single comment and it's given me a different perspective. I was counting years, but it's really not that bad. She is like a sister now, and those who asked, I doubt we will get back together honestly. I am not thinking about anything like that right now. I'm too tired to think of a relationship or that type of future. Update. I, 16M, have a 4-month-old daughter. XGF wants to go to college. I don't know why I feel like I need to update, but here it goes. Tiff and my dad went to the school and were able to get her enrolled in college courses because of her grades. She won't graduate HS way too fast, but she will have enough to finish HS hours by next December, so 6 months early. She reapplied for assistance, we got a voucher for daycare, so now it's $50 a week. She quit her job so she can focus on school, but she doesn't start college until spring, so that's cool. It gives her some time. She still wants to be a nurse, so that's cool too. I got a new job that pays more as a forklift operator and will give me an internship for welding, which I won't be able to start until November/December until I finish my classes, and then I have to do a 2-month internship, but they are paying me really good. I started Monday. My dad and I had a long talk about my fears, and he reassured me that it's okay to be scared, but we have a game plan. He is fixing up the basement to make 2 bedrooms and a living room like a little apartment, because he said Tiff and I will need space as we grow. He wants me to buy the house when I am 18 like he did with his parents, and he will help me pay it as long as Tiff gets to stay until she finishes college and let her make her own choice. We all agreed this is the best option, and we are all really much happier now. I guess I just needed to let it out. Tiff and I are great. While being parents is hard, it's been good now that we feel a bit more secure. My mom and Tiff's parents still haven't spoken to us because we aren't married, which does make me sad, but it's okay. We have my dad. Tiff's grandparents bought her a car and said that's all they can do for her and not to contact them again until we are married. The car needs some work, but I'm going to pay for it to fix it up. It needs brakes, suspension, and some regular maintenance. My dad finally told me what all happened and I didn't know, but it made me open my eyes to all of this. My dad met my mom in HS2 and they were together and got caught kissing. Since my mom's family are Baptist, they forced my dad to marry her. I didn't know in Missouri parents can marry their kids at 15, which is why my dad has been so protective. They were going to marry Tiff and I because she was pregnant, and when my dad stepped in, they couldn't do it. My mom and Tiff's dad went and got a license for us and were going to marry us in their church. I guess I wouldn't have minded marrying Tiff, but I would rather do it later. But yeah, that's why they aren't talking to us. My dad did say if that happened, he would have helped us get it annulled, but we have no intentions of speaking to them right now. He explained that Tiff is stuck, and while I might be afraid, she is even more afraid because she has no one, and I need to reassure her we are here for her as a family. I guess I couldn't see it that way, and it's good that I talked to him. I hugged my dad, and I have been hugging him every day now, and it's nice. This made us closer. All of this information made me pretty sad and grateful at the same time, and it helped Tiff and I really start talking more. Like we talked, but we didn't talk, and I didn't know she was scared too. We are now doing days for us to be kids, as my dad says. So we both hang out with our friends who still talk to us at least once a week, and Tiff and I do a lot of stuff on the weekends now that she doesn't work, like taking Jelly to the park and going for walks, and we did a pumpkin patch. Jelly seems to be happier too, and Tiff doesn't seem as tired anymore. Anyway, thanks everyone for the help, tips, and encouragement. I doubt I will update again and just lurk for parenting advice. Edit. Just want to say thanks for thinking I'm a great dad. But I don't believe it just yet. I depend a lot on my dad to help me. Tiff and I are trying. We do take parenting classes that they offer us a lot of advice, and we have made friends there, which is nice. But I don't think we would be this prepared without my dad. Also, Tiff is on WIC and we take parenting and co-parenting classes. It's my dad's rules now. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My brother threw his birthday party the night before my wedding to spite me. My parents chose his party over my wedding, then showed up at my house at 4 a.m. to harass me. I, 31M, got married a few days ago, but my family didn't attend. My brother, Gerald, was not even invited since we really don't like one another. So that was not a surprise. But even my parents didn't show up because at the very last minute, the night before my wedding, Gerald decided to have a crazy 28th birthday party. He sent out the invitations to all our relatives about a week before my wedding just to be petty and spiteful, since he hadn't been invited. It was a pretty big deal as well. He had rented out a huge venue and gone all out on entertainment by hiring a live band and a stand-up comedian to perform. I'm only assuming that the catering and drinks arrangements would have been at par. The entertainment, though they are not exactly nationwide popular, are still pretty popular in the local circuit. Apart from that, I'm assuming that everything would have been pretty expensive as well. A cousin of mine showed that invitation to me, and for a couple of minutes, I was actually feeling paranoid that folks might end up attending his party instead of our wedding. But then, even if they chose to do that, there was nothing much we could do about it. My wife and I both knew that people would have to pick. Either they couldn't attend the party the previous night and then attend our wedding the next day, because the party was being thrown in the city, and we were getting married in a hotel that was almost 8 hours away. But we didn't want to say anything to our guests. We wanted to let people make their own choices, and we are extremely lucky that everyone chose to attend the wedding. In hindsight, it seems silly that we were even worried in the first place because, of course, a wedding is far more important than a birthday. The only people who didn't attend were my parents, which was quite unexpected because even though we had had a fight a couple of days before our wedding, I didn't expect them to actually attend his party and not bother showing up for the wedding. The fight had taken place on a call 4 days before the wedding, and after that, I got really busy with last-minute prep, so I wasn't able to contact them, and they didn't bother either. But I never thought that they would skip it because the wedding is a very significant event in somebody's life, especially when it's your own kid. And the fight itself had also been about the wedding and the birthday, because after my cousin had shown me the invitation, I had called my parents up and told them what was going on. I thought that they were going to be on my side, that they were going to explain things to my brother and have him back off. Instead, they started telling me that it was my own fault for not inviting him to the wedding and putting our past differences aside, and now he had every right to be petty. I couldn't expect them to intervene and try to defuse the situation, since we're not kids anymore and they didn't think it would be appropriate. I have to admit, I got a little upset with my parents that they were actually trying to justify what my brother was trying to do, even though it was really spiteful and petty. So I told them off about it and we got into a minor fight, and so I hung up eventually, after telling them that if they really thought that he was doing the right thing by creating trouble for us, then they should just attend his party and just not bother coming to the wedding. Then after that, I didn't speak to them. Until the day before the wedding, in the morning while we were driving to the hotel, I kept trying to call them because they were supposed to come with us. But the car that we had sent to them had come back empty, and the driver had told us that he had kept trying to ring the bell and contact our parents, but nobody answered. So I kept trying to contact them the entire day, but nobody responded, and at night I was supposed to admit that maybe they would not make it. The next day, even in the morning right before the ceremony, I kept expecting them to show up and still tried to call them, but they didn't, and I had to get married without them. I would have been upset about it, but then I was getting married to the love of my life, so I didn't let these things bother me at the time. And after the ceremony was over, I had decided that I was not going to bother contacting them anymore, since they had already missed the biggest milestone of my life. Later on in the evening, during the reception, they finally called me back, and I answered out of curiosity because I really wanted to know what they had to say to me. When I picked up, they told me that since I had asked them not to bother attending the wedding, they had done exactly that. But in spite of that, they still wanted to congratulate me. I thought that they were talking about the wedding, but then they told me that they were congratulating me not just for the wedding, but also for getting my way. Obviously, I could see that nobody from the family had bothered to attend the party, and my parents were upset with me. And they made it very clear on the phone that they believed that I must have said something to everyone else to turn them against my brother, because not only had they skipped the party, they had also shamed and lectured him for his behavior through texts and calls. Even though his friends and coworkers had attended the party, it had been a massive waste because he had assumed that a lot of folks were going to attend, but in reality, they were only a handful in comparison to his expectations. And now Gerald is not just disappointed with the rest of the family, he has also ended up wasting a lot of his money. And somehow, this is supposed to be my fault because my parents genuinely believed that I had said something to turn the rest of the family against him, even though any normal human being would have behaved the exact same way. So while I had them on the phone, I excused myself from the reception and actually went out to talk to them about the situation. I explained to them that I was really upset that they had decided to skip my wedding over something so petty, and on top of that, they were even taunting me right now for getting my own way, in spite of the fact that the rest of the family had made their own decision. I was furious with them, So I really tore into them, and they told me that they couldn't care less about what I thought because they knew that I was jealous and insecure about my brother, and that's why I'm acting like this. That was the last straw. So I just hung up and blocked them and decided to enjoy the rest of the evening without thinking about these people because I didn't want them to ruin the best day of my life. And now it's been a couple of days since the wedding, so I finally decided that I was going to put out a statement about what had happened, because a lot of people had a lot of questions about why my parents had chosen to skip the wedding, since they couldn't even imagine that they had chosen to attend Gerald's party. So I decided to send out a mail to all the guests explaining the entire situation in detail, telling them all about the party that my brother had thrown, the argument that my parents had with me, and what I had said to them about not bothering to show up at the wedding. And then I spoke to them about the argument that we had on the phone reception. Basically, I put everything out and didn't spare any detail, and now everybody is cutting them off, and yet again they are blaming me for it, saying that I'm going out of my way to create drama and be petty towards my family, and that might actually be the case. So, am I the a-hole for talking about why exactly my parents did not attend my wedding in detail and turning the rest of the family against them? Edit. Alright, since a lot of you had a lot of questions about why exactly my brother and I don't get along, well, there's no particular reason as such. Even when we were children, we were really not that close, but as we started growing up, we started getting even more distant. He always seemed to be a little jealous of me, constantly copying me and stuff, and it used to get on my nerves. So we started fighting, and by the time we started high school, we really didn't like each other. Then I moved out for college, and then I stayed for work, and I would visit home occasionally, but even on those visits, he would be totally insufferable. He would be taking potshots at me about my appearance, how much I earned, and things like that, and it used to really get on my nerves. So I just started ignoring him altogether because I knew that I would have to see him, and it didn't seem worth it to respond to him and pick fights. After a while, he realized that I was not going to give him the satisfaction and actually react to him, so we just stopped speaking to one another, and even when we would see each other at family gatherings, we would just ignore one another. So there really wasn't any particular incident that led us to behave like this. It was just situations that went sour over the years, and that's why we don't get along, and I didn't invite him to the wedding. I don't think I did anything wrong. I don't even think that he was expecting to be invited, and if he was, then that would have been a pretty unreasonable expectation. As for my parents, they also know and they are well aware of exactly why we stopped speaking to him, and in the beginning they tried to patch things up, but it didn't work, so eventually they gave up on it as well. But they had never been more in favor of him or me as far as I can remember. They had always tried to be fair to both of us, and that's actually why I was all the more surprised at their reaction recently, because it felt like they were being unreasonably biased towards him, and that had never happened before. Anyway, it is what it is, can't help it now. Update 1. Hey, so first things first, thank you to everybody who commented. It was good to be reassured that this is not my fault and I don't have anything to be sorry about. All the emails from my parents that had been flooding my inbox ever since I put out the truth to everybody else in the family have been deleted, and I have blocked them everywhere. So they can keep trying to make new accounts and get to me, but I'm not going to go back on what I had said about them. Besides, it's not even like I made anything and started spewing obnoxious, false crap about them. I just put out the truth in the email that I had sent to everybody in the family. I didn't even add anything about my personal feelings. I just mentioned the exact situation as it was, and that's it. People were allowed to come to their own conclusions about what they wanted to do, and if people want to cut them off because of their behavior, then that's really not my headache. And on the day of the wedding, they had already accused me of trying to turn the rest of the family against Gerald. So I only did something they had already accused me of, because why should I face the punishment without even committing the crime? Anyway, at least what I did was way less underhanded and pathetic than what they are trying to do right now. My cousins and a couple of other relatives have shown me the email that they sent out in response to mine, saying that I have always been jealous and insecure of Gerald, and even though my brother had thrown a last-minute birthday party, it was only because I had gone out of my way to make him feel bad, and that's why he had retaliated. They cooked up this incident that never even happened where, apparently, a couple of weeks after I had sent out the invitations to the rest of the family, I called Gerald up to taunt him about the fact that I was inviting the rest of the family but not him because he was simply not good enough to make the cut. Apparently, I had told Gerald that my in-laws are from a pretty well-to-do family, and I didn't want them to know that my brother was a good-for-nothing freelancer. Now, obviously, I hadn't done anything of the sort, and anyone who knows me well will refuse to believe anything of this sort. So the rest of the family hasn't been buying anything that they have been saying about me, which is why I haven't bothered to clarify anything because I know that they are lying and nobody is going to believe them. But I have to say, the fact that they have to resort to lying to make me look like the bad guy just so they can clean their own image and reputation, it's pretty hilarious. And in doing so, they're not even helping themselves, they're actually making things even worse for themselves. I honestly don't understand why they are so bent on making me the bad guy right now, especially when I don't even think that I have done anything to hurt them apart from that email. It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, it's clear that they are desperate and are grasping at straws right now. But for me, this is a chapter that's done and dusted, and now I'm just going to focus on my time as a newlywed because that's not going to come back. I can deal with the drama later. I'm pretty sure that this is not going to be the end of the situation and they are going to try their best to drag it out like chewing gum. Update 2. So it's been a week since my last update, and last evening, Gerald and my parents decided to add me to a conference call. They were both calling from burner phones, so I don't have those numbers saved, but it doesn't take much to know that it must have been them. I was at home with my wife, so I decided to pick up the call and speak to them because I wanted to mess with them, and that I did. As soon as I picked up, I spent like the first 5 minutes pretending that I couldn't hear them, and even though they had called me with the intention of yelling at me, they had to make sure that they were at least audible. So before they said anything, they had to coordinate with me, and it was very funny. Anyway, after that, they finally got down to business and started telling me that the rest of the family was not on speaking terms with them. Everyone was very upset about their behavior, and they thought that my parents and Gerald were extremely petty. So now they expect me to do something about it. I didn't know what they had in mind, so I asked them what they wanted me to do, even though I had no intention of agreeing to it. I decided to play along just for laughs, but of course they thought that I was being sincere. So they told me that a lot of things had been said by all of us, and at the end of the day, the only thing that it was harming was our family's reputation as a whole. I thought that it was strange that they were saying that because as far as I was concerned, this whole incident had done nothing to my image or reputation. People still liked me, but I guess they just wanted me to feel like this had anything to do with me or my image, so I would at least be a little open to whatever they were asking of me. Anyway, they told me that they wanted to put out another statement in an email saying that we had decided to sort things out amongst ourselves and had forgiven each other because after all, we are still family. They said the only way that we would be able to fix our reputation right now because they didn't want to become the laughingstock and content for gossiping for the rest of the family due to this incident. But unfortunately for them, I could see right through them. I knew that they were only willing to pretend that we had forgiven each other because they knew that nobody had bought any of the lies that they had been spreading about me, and if they didn't want to be ostracized from the rest of the family, they had to pretend like everything was fine between us once again now and that I had forgiven them so the rest of the family would follow suit. But I was done playing around by then, so I bluntly refused and told them very clearly that it was they who wanted to fix their reputation, not me. So I really had no reason to play along and pretend like I had forgiven them. I also had a huge problem with the way they had worded everything that we had forgiven each other because I don't think that they are in a position to forgive me. I haven't done anything wrong. I might have said some things in the heat of the moment, but at the end of the day, it was their decision to skip my wedding and attend the birthday party, and after that whatever has happened, it has happened because of their behavior. Besides, after all the lies that they have been spreading about me, I don't want to look like a weakling and pretend that I have forgiven them. So I made it very clear to them that I was not in agreement with whatever they had proposed, and if they wanted to stay mad at me and continue to spread lies about me in the hopes that maybe somebody would believe them and they would be able to justify everything, they were completely welcome to do so. Of course, after that, my parents got really mad, and so did Gerald, and he told me that this was all my fault, that if I had just done the decent thing instead of being petty and not inviting him to such an important family event, then none of this would have even happened. It was clear that he felt snubbed, and for a moment I felt bad, but then it was my wedding. I'm not obliged to invite anyone and everyone, especially when I don't even get along well with them and they know that. So I said that to Gerald and we got into a bit of a tiff over the phone. He called me petty, and I told him that he was stupid to even expect that I would be inviting him, especially after he had had pretty much no contact apart from family events for the past couple of years. If he had wanted me to be nice to him, maybe he should have behaved the same way with me. But as far as I can remember, he has never invited me to any of the events that he has hosted, though they have never been as significant as a wedding or even an engagement, but that's beside the point. The point is that he has never been nice to me, so I don't see why he expected to be invited to the wedding. Anyway, after a while, things just got too loud and annoying. Gerald was screeching and my parents were shouting about something else and I couldn't make sense of anything, so I just hung up on them, and I blocked those burner phone numbers as well. I wouldn't say that I totally regret it. I did have a bit of fun with them, but I have to say that if they call me again, I don't think I'll be picking up because as entertaining as this was in the beginning, it got pretty taxing by the end and I'm done. Update 3. Hi. So it's been a couple of days since my last update and today in the morning at around 4 o'clock. My phone started buzzing. When I checked, it was an unknown number, so I didn't pick up because I was pretty sure that it was either Gerald or one of my parents calling. And again, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, so I had no intention of getting into a thing with them at that time, especially given the fact that I had to get to work in a couple of hours. But then about half an hour after I didn't pick up the phone, we started hearing people shouting from outside our house and somebody ringing the doorbell nonstop while banging on the door as well. Obviously, it was very alarming and it took us a couple of minutes to process what was going on. But soon enough my wife and I registered the fact that it was my parents and Gerald outside and it was their voices that we were hearing. They insisted that we needed to open up and said that they needed to talk to us because what I was doing was ruining their lives since they had been completely cut off by the rest of the family and it was all my fault. Now had it been at any other time of the day, I might have felt mildly annoyed, but since it was literally 4 o'clock in the morning, I was furious because all things aside, they really cannot harass people like this, and they were actually being pretty loud, so I was sure that the neighbors could hear them as well, though they didn't say anything about it later on and were nice enough to pretend nothing had happened. I knew that they had been quite disturbed by the commotion outside, and it was quite embarrassing for me. Anyway, when I heard them outside, I didn't even think twice. I just called the cops on them because I had had enough. For the time that it took for the cops to show up, my wife and I just sat in bed and let them scream themselves hoarse. We were both very upset by whatever was happening, and so we didn't even get out of bed until the cops showed up. Then we explained the entire situation and had them taken off of our property. But by then we had already lost a lot of sleep and we had to skip work today. It's extremely annoying that we missed out on an entire day of work because of them and their nonsensical behavior because I really can't imagine why they had to get so worked up about people not speaking to them at such a time. But anyway, we have had enough, and after this, if anything happens, I think we are going to have to file for a restraining order. Moving or changing numbers is a huge deal, which might be expensive or time-consuming at the very least, so that's not going to be possible as of now. But that's the least that we can try, even though they haven't exactly threatened us, so I don't know if we have ground for it or not. We are going to talk to a lawyer though, so let's just see how this unfolds. Update 4. Hi, so it's been a couple of days since the incident that happened in the morning, and after that, we spoke to a lawyer. The very same evening, since my parents and Gerald were just trespassing and causing a ruckus, but they hadn't actually hurt anyone or anything, they were just let off with a warning against disorderly conduct and no charges were pressed. But lucky for us, we still have grounds for a restraining order because of their behavior, so we decided to go ahead with it. Today, they were served with the notice, and in a couple of days, we are going to appear in court and put an end to this, which is going to be a huge relief. I've already spoken to a bunch of people in my family about this. I don't see the point in hiding their behavior anymore, and it's actually shocking that they are acting like this, especially given the fact that before this, they had never even cared much about the rest of the family. And it's true. My parents were never the kind of people who were very close to the rest of the family, and as for Gerald, he hardly even speaks to anyone in the family, so having people cut them off, it really shouldn't affect them as much as it has. And I'm guessing that this isn't about the family cutting them off at all. This is just about them wanting to stir up trouble for me, and that's it. Well, I hope they're happy now because the only person that they have ended up screwing things up for is themselves, and now they're going to have to face the consequences of their actions. It's so sad that so much drama could have been avoided if my parents and my brother could have just behaved like normal, reasonable people, but they had to go out of their way to embarrass themselves and by extension me as well. It's not as though I'm enjoying the process of this. It's actually pretty sad that I'm going to have to file a restraining order against my own family, but this situation calls for it and I don't have any other option. This is actually just pathetic. Update 5. Hey. So it has been 4 weeks since my last update, and recently the 2-year restraining order against my family was granted. So that's pretty nice. The rest of the family is also in solidarity with us, which they have always been right from the beginning, but as of now, not only have they blocked them out of their lives completely and stopped inviting them to stuff, but they have also started keeping more in touch with me, making sure that I'm doing all right and checking up on me. And even though most of the time I feel completely fine, at certain points I do feel like the stuff that has happened with my family, it's really sad, and I really appreciate the fact that the rest of the family is trying to make up for it. To have a support system like this, I don't think that there's anything in the world that I would trade this for. I feel particularly close to everyone, especially my cousins, since they have been at the forefront of everything, helping me out emotionally, and even with practical matters like putting me in touch with a good lawyer. So I'm very, very grateful for everything that everyone has done for me, and I think it's about time that I start a fresh chapter. My wife and I are going to be leaving for our honeymoon in a couple of days, and when we come back, I hope that things are going to feel like they have changed. I know that a change of scenery is exactly what we need, so I'm pretty excited about this. The next week and a half are going to be pretty great, and I'm just going to ignore everything to do with my parents or Gerald. I'm not going to let them ruin this for me like they tried to do with my wedding, and I'm determined about that. Anyway, that being said, thank you to everybody who kept themselves in the loop about what was going on with me and for all the support that I have received in the comments. See you. Now on to the next story. Story 7. I broke up with my boyfriend right before we were about to move in together. I sobbed in my car after apartment hunting, and his mom chased me down the street when I left. I, 22F, and my boyfriend, 23M, have been dating for 8 years. We met in high school and have been together ever since. We've grown and changed with each other miraculously, and our relationship has been amazing. We were always communicative with each other, always doted on one another, have inside jokes that are years long, and have become so comfortable with who we are as a couple. Our relationship, by all means, is a wonderful one. But I guess I wouldn't be posting here if it was so wonderful, would I? As we've entered into adulthood, I started asking the bigger questions that I realized I wasn't really getting answers on. He's been against having kids, but I want kids. My biggest advice I received was to wait for his real answer when we were older because I asked these questions after dating for 4 years. I asked him what he wanted to do with his future, where he saw himself career-wise, and what he was feeling about who he was as a person, if he was changing and growing. To be honest, whenever we speak about these things, I always feel like it gets really quiet. He becomes shorter with his words, a lot of I don't knows after asking questions. Many times I get some answers once he's thought about it, but this scenario has always been regular for us. I'm asking bigger questions trying to get feedback, and he gives little answers and asks to think about them. But we have always moved along. Next day, next season, we're really happy with each other. We cuddle and watch Netflix TV shows, go to the ice rink, having romantic dinners, and tell each other how much we adore one another. But those questions start to bother me. Why? Why doesn't he want to answer them? Why doesn't he ask those about me? Is it necessarily bad that he doesn't want to ask? I mean, we're only in our 20s, but we've been dating for 8 years. The toss and turn was agonizing. I felt like I was waiting for an answer for a question I asked years ago. Regardless of the timeline, I felt more and more pressured to have them answered because we've been talking about marriage. When I would forget that those questions were so important to me, everything was hunky-dory. We'd talk about where we would live, the animals we would have, and name them, the kinds of TV shows we'd watch on a weekly basis. I pushed the issues I had been feeling in my core back inside because I figured if I'm a patient girlfriend, a loving one, a supportive one, our relationship will get better. How long we've stayed together is testament to our ability to grow together. We've done it this long. Why wouldn't it continue happening? But it hasn't. It really hasn't, guys. This last weekend, something snapped. We were looking for places to live. We had 3 appointments. I was looking around the apartment, looking at the kitchen, looking at our bedroom. When we kissed each other goodbye after a post-appointment cuddle, snap, and I went back home. I burst out crying in the car. I was sobbing when I got home. I called my mom. She came over. I was broken. Something died. Something straight up died. I don't know what's going on. I think I need to break up with him. I don't think this is the kind of change that I can ask of him. I don't think asking him to change is fair. It's not that I haven't been patient. I have. He has been giving me his answer to all my questions. I just haven't been happy with what they are. The silence, the skirting around the topic, the I don't knows. I thought we could grow through any scenario, but moving in together put it all into perspective for me. I'm not ready to move in with this guy. Earlier in the year, he told me he was all right with kids, with having them too. After that conversation, Such a huge flood of relief hit me that I think spurred this season of ignorance. He answered my biggest big question, so I was happy. But the reality is setting in. Does he actually mean that? Did he say that to appease my asking? He has told me that I'm the best thing to happen to him, that he loves me, and that I inspire him to be a better person, and that he's happy he's with me because he wouldn't know how to date anyone else at this point since we've been together for so long. I wish he had the motivation and drive and a goal for himself. I wish he thought about his future. I wish he was more excited about life, more positive about life. I wish he wasn't so angry at people and himself. I wish he approached his problems readily and openly. I wish he was more emotionally available. I wish I knew how to do this without destroying him, because I think it will. His family would all turn on him, I know it. We've been talking about marriage, we're looking at places to live together, and I just imploded. I imploded. My gut is telling me to do this, and it's never been wrong. But how? How on earth do I do this? Edit. Thank you, everyone, so much for your comments. All of them. I've read every one. I think after the initial hysteria and realization of what I was feeling and putting it into written word, that I've come to realize what I'm truly feeling. I'll post an update after this weekend when I talk with him. I'll tell you how it goes. Update. So the big conversation happened on Friday, a day earlier than what I was expecting. After writing this post and speaking to trusted family and friends, I decided I didn't want to wake up like I had all week, feeling like that anymore. I'd open my eyes and just immediately feel that familiar pain in my chest. I wanted it to be over. He had been texting me normally in the week, so I knew he wasn't expecting this. It made it so much harder. That part wasn't easy, texting him back very plainly to avoid lying or leading him on, but I asked him if he'd like to meet on Friday, and he said he'd love to. So, I went over in the morning after running a few errands with my brother. He drove what he called the getaway car and said he'd pick me up when it was over. It was so hard. His family was decorating the house for Christmas as soon as I got there. His mother asked me to help drape some garland across the front porch. I stood there with my heart in my throat, helping her out. As soon as I found a window, I walked into the house and found him in the kitchen. He was still in his pajamas. I asked if we could talk in his room, and he said, "Sure." He wrapped me in a hug and rubbed my back, and it took everything not to cry right then. We walked up the stairs to his room. I closed the door and gave him one last huge hug in the privacy of his room. I took a breath and then asked if we could sit down. I sat crisscross and began. I told him that I had been in so much pain since we came back after looking at places to live together. I told him that I didn't think we should live together. I told him that was because I didn't think we should be together. I told him it wasn't his fault, that this wasn't because he had something wrong. I told him I felt like there was something wrong with our relationship and that I knew moving in together wasn't the right choice for us, and ultimately committing to each other like that wasn't the right choice for me. I told him that I wasn't able to commit to him in that way when the choice came. I told him that it wasn't a smooth transition, that this decision came all at me at once like a freight train. I told him that I was sorry. He asked me why I was doing this. He looked absolutely shocked. He told me he thought everything was perfect and that he didn't understand why I was saying this. He asked me where we should go from here. I told him I wanted to talk this out since we've been together for so long. I told him I wasn't going to waver in my decision because I felt like it was the right choice to make, but I wanted to talk it out instead. He went to his dresser, got out of his pajamas, got into a change of clothes, grabbed his backpack, and left. His mother asked him for more Christmas help, but as far as I knew, he walked by her. I sat there in shock. I guess before he left he said, "See you Saturday," because our friends were having a Friendsgiving. I could feel the hysteria come on. It was like a tidal wave, the reality of what I had just done. It was like every elegant, composed, logical reason I had for breaking up went right out the window. Every graceful approach I was going to take this conversation and just blanked on me. I was simply honest and raw, and now I felt like the shittiest person I'd ever known. I got my shoes on and flew down the stairs. His mother was asking me for more Christmas help, but in the first time in years, I ignored her and ran out the front door. I was walking away from his house. After I had reached the street, she came outside. I could hear her steps behind me. She called out my name with the same urgency that you call out to someone as if they forgot something in the house. I didn't turn around. She called out my name again, louder, and I rounded the corner towards the rest of the neighborhood. I then called my brother and asked him to pick me up. He was there in 2 seconds. The car was still moving as I opened the door and slid inside, and I was out of there. That was by far the hardest thing I've ever done. I was sobbing. My brother held my hand. It was loud, heartbreaking sobbing. I can't believe I had ended an 8-year relationship, but I did. I went home and my family was all there. They all comforted me through it and told me their breakup stories of their first loves. That was Friday. Today, Monday, I have to say it was absolutely the correct decision for me to make. After the initial tears, hysteria, and destruction, I realized I had needed to make that decision for a long time. I feel fuller in a way, if that makes sense, and I'm excited for what's to come for me. Edit. To be honest, I'm shocked again at the response. Thank you all. Even the people who don't agree with my decision. If I were to respond to you all and include every single detail of our relationship to try and justify myself, I think it would defeat the point of reading your honest responses because that's what I'll be dealing with going forward. I appreciate every comment. I've gone through and read them all. Thank you for your eyes and time spent giving your input. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I gave 15 years to build our family business, but my brother got the new truck as an engagement gift. I quit and the company fell apart. I was the mainstay of Wilson Family Plumbing. My name is Alex, and I am 35 years old. When the majority of my pals left for college, I remained to assist Dad in growing the company. I gained first-hand knowledge of everything, including how to unclog obstinate drains, repair leaky pipes, construct intricate systems, and handle upset clients at 2 in the morning during a winter crisis. I took over the company early. My father progressively returned to a managerial position in his garage. Dad began with a van and a toolkit. We now have 8 trucks and 12 staff, or rather, they do. There was no magic or serendipity behind that growth. I gave up weekends, sweated for thousands of hours, and paid close attention to establishing our name in the neighborhood. Each and every favorable review, each and every recurring client, every recommendation, I had personally made sure they were happy. 5 years ago, my younger brother, Travis, joined. He still behaves like a youngster who is compelled to work in the family business. At the age of 28, he frequently arrives late, takes long meals, and leaves tasks unfinished. It's astounding how many consumer complaints I've had to handle following his trips. Although I'm available for emergencies around the clock on the weekends, Travis forgets his phone. Dad always has an excuse ready. Somehow he's still learning the ropes, and not everyone has your natural talent, Alex. There were always the warning signs. New hires I trained frequently received promotions ahead of me. After I put in place a new scheduling system that resulted in a 30% increase in efficiency at our corporate meeting, Travis received recognition for his support of the program. When I proposed diversifying into business contracts, Dad said it was too dangerous. Travis made the same suggestion 6 months later, and my father referred to it as innovative thinking. It became impossible to overlook the discrepancies in wealth. For years, Dad had promised me a partnership, lingering ownership interests that never came to pass. In the meantime, I found that Travis was earning $15,000 more a year while being less experienced and having less responsibilities. The 2010 vehicle I was driving had 180,000 miles on it. Travis and Dad, they drove around in cars that weren't even 3 years old. Loyalty was important, I told myself. The family comes first. One day Dad would see what I had done. In every way, I was mistaken. For months, my truck had been experiencing frequent breakdowns. The suspension was shot, the transmission was slipping. Also, there were rust holes in the cargo area that allowed water to enter during rainstorms, damaging costly equipment. Following a particularly severe malfunction that cost us a significant client, at last Dad acknowledged that we needed a new car. I was evaluating the damage to my old truck that evening. Dad took 2 beers and came out to the garage. Leaning against the workbench, he handed one to me. It was like the old days for a while, prior to Travis's employment with the organization, when I would resolve issues with Dad. Remember when I taught you how to change the belt on the old Ford? His grizzled face softened with a rare smile. You couldn't have been more than 12. I nodded as the recollection came back to me. You let me do the whole job while you supervised. Told me I had the steadiest hands you'd ever seen on a kid. Never seen anyone take to plumbing like you did, Alex. Natural talent. He looked at the truck instead of me while he sipped his beer slowly. This business, it wouldn't be what it is without you. It made me feel valued for a time like I seldom ever did anymore. I felt a connection to him. Before returning inside, he gave me a shoulder clap, leading me to ponder why those epiphanies had become so infrequent. When it really mattered, why couldn't he see my worth? In front of Travis, in compensation, in business decisions. I looked into my alternatives for weeks, locating the best offers, organizing all the paperwork, and striking a balance between cargo capacity and fuel efficiency. I even made financial arrangements with our long-standing bank. For the following 10 years, this truck would serve as my mobile office. I wanted to do it correctly. Dad invited all of us to dinner that Sunday. Travis brought Jessica, his fiancée, who he had just gotten engaged to after only 8 months of dating. Mom prepared a feast. Dad looked unusually happy. When dessert was finished, he got up and yelled for everyone to pay attention. My heart soared. Perhaps I reasoned he would finally recognize my efforts. Perhaps even make public the collaboration we had discussed. Rather, he produced a set of keys that were fastened to a silver keychain bearing the business's emblem. He gave them to Travis with the broadest smile I'd seen in a long time. To help you start your new life, son. The new company truck is yours. I had them add all the upgrades you wanted. Consider it an engagement present from your mother and me. The ensuing quiet seemed to last forever. Jessica clapped her hands with joy as Travis smiled smugly. My emotions went unnoticed by them. While averting my gaze, my mother busied herself cleaning plates. At last, I was able to speak, but my voice was constricted. Dad, we discussed that truck. For the service calls I handle. Travis doesn't even do emergency work. Dad dismissed it with a wave. You can keep using your current truck for a while longer. Travis needs to project a professional image now that he'll be taking over more client relationships. Besides, you know how to keep that old one running. You've always been good with repairs. Without even feigning gratitude, I watched Travis dangle the keys while discussing how he might personalize the paint job. His newest hobby was the truck that should have been mine, the one I required for my real job. Something eventually snapped inside me on the way home in my squeaky old pickup. It was more than just the car. It was being neglected, underappreciated, and taken for granted for around 15 years. It was the knowledge that Travis would always be the preferred son, and I would always be the dependable workhorse, regardless of what I contributed. I had trouble sleeping that night. I looked through job postings, something I had never given much thought to before. I gave Jack, a former coworker who had gone to work for a rival company, a call to inquire about their business. I was astonished by his response. Alex, you could write your own ticket anywhere in the county with your abilities and connections with clients. What really has kept you at your dad's house for so long? For the first time, I understood that my own mistreatment had been made possible by what I had assumed to be loyalty. I had forgotten my own value since I had been so accustomed to being underappreciated. Jack stated that his business required a skilled expert to oversee their commercial branch, precisely the chance that my father's business had refused me. I painstakingly documented everything I handled throughout the course of the following week. Comprehensive guidelines for our systems, customer preferences, maintenance plans, supplier connections, and emergency procedures. I included remarks about each significant client to the customer database. I refused to become like them by undermining the company. However, I also didn't want to give them a reason to phone me after I left. When I got to work early the next Monday, I put an envelope on my father's desk. Casually late as usual, he came an hour later. His look changed from bewilderment to incredulity as he opened the envelope. 2 weeks' notice, Alex? Have you got a joke? He leaned back in his chair and inquired. I calmly and professionally expressed my choice. I only touched on the vehicle incident in passing, preferring to talk about the partnership's repeated unmet promises and my need for professional development. Brighton Plumbing Services was the company I had accepted a position with. Dad sneered. "You'll be back in a week. What we provide you here is unmatched by them. Isn't this just a tantrum over the truck?" He didn't even bother to inquire about my wages. He might have understood that I would be earning almost 40% more with benefits and that I would have a clear route to partnership in just 2 years. The company was instantly inundated with the news. Instead of his typical smug expression, Travis's face flushed with dread as he cornered me in the supply room. He growled, "You can't just walk away. Who will be in charge of the Westside contracts or the upkeep of the hospital or the calls for emergencies?" His self-assured exterior momentarily broke down. He lowered his voice to a whisper. "Dad has been preparing me to assume leadership in the future, but half of what you do is unknown to me. I didn't bother to become familiar with the systems. This is not what I'm ready for." I was shocked to hear the admission of inadequacy. However, it was no longer my issue. He had been content to claim credit for years while I completed the work. I answered, "I'm sure you'll figure it out. You have a nice new truck to drive around in, after all." Unexpectedly, those 2 weeks were freeing. As many of my duties as I could, I taught others. I presented their new technicians to important clients. I painstakingly recorded everything in a 3-ring binder with the big marker label Essential Operations. I put the binder, my business phone, my credit card, and the building's keys on my father's desk on my last day. Dad hardly noticed that I was gone. He remained certain that I would return in a matter of days. Mom contacted me that night with tears in her eyes, pleading with me to think again. She stated, "Family businesses have ups and downs, but we must remain united." I politely mentioned that despite always being underappreciated, I had remained loyal to them for 15 years. This was not a rash choice. It was past due by 15 years. It was an eye-opening first month at Brighton. I was referred to as the best plumber in the county by my new boss, Kevin, to both clients and employees. In addition to being heard, my recommendations were put into practice. When I suggested a more effective method for scheduling business maintenance, Kevin gave me the tools to implement it and urged me to make it a company-wide system. Then my first big test arrived. For months, Brighton had unsuccessfully bid on the Lakeside Corporate Park contract. I knew I had important inside information when Kevin said they were trying one last time. For years, Wilson Family Plumbing had provided building maintenance, and I was fully aware of their priorities and the problems they had faced. Knowing that, I could almost assure Brighton of winning the contract. However, it felt wrong to use such information, a breach of confidentiality for clients, even though in theory I hadn't signed anything that would have stopped it. I thought about my possibilities through a restless night. I got everything from Brighton that my family business couldn't. Respect, just compensation, the chance I wanted to demonstrate my worth. But not at the expense of my morals. I entered Kevin's office the following morning and gave him the following explanation. Although I was unable to provide precise information regarding lakeside systems, with my knowledge of comparable properties, I might assist Brighton in developing a more robust general proposition. Kevin looked at me for a while. He finally remarked, "You know, most guys would have just used whatever advantage they had. Alex, I hired you precisely because of your integrity. Despite this, we were able to secure the contract based on our bid rather than insider knowledge. More than any simple win could have, that moment solidified my position at Brighton. Most unexpectedly, I completed my assignment within a fair time frame. Travis had messed up a simple job. Therefore, there would be no more midnight calls. No more working on the weekends since Dad had made unrealistic deadline promises without first talking to me. I started hiking on Saturdays, got back in touch with old pals, and even started dating someone who wasn't worn out by my frequent work emergencies. The consequences at Wilson Family Plumbing, meanwhile, were immediate and serious. Their Yelp rating fell from 4.8 to 3.2 stars in only 2 weeks. When they found out I had left, customers who had expressly asked for me were incensed. Missed meetings and duplicate bookings resulted from the breakdown of the intricate scheduling system I had developed, which no one else fully understood. By week 3, the texts began to come in. From Travis first, How can I view the maintenance records for the hospital? Next, from Dad. Where did you save the Peterson job warranty details? I just replied with succinct, businesslike instructions for the paperwork I had left behind. When Travis tried to manage the quarterly maintenance at Riverside Medical Center, our biggest commercial client, a serious situation arose. A storage area flooded as a result of his failure to close a major valve. Their contract was immediately terminated by the hospital, resulting in an annual loss of $180,000. 2 seasoned technicians left that same week, complaining about the unorganized schedule and a lack of direction. One of those techs, Tom, who is currently employed by a rival company, told me what transpired after that. After having a total breakdown at the office, Travis screamed that he was being set up to fail and threw tools across the workshop. He said that his father had thrown him into the deep end without the necessary training and had expected him to take on my responsibilities right away without ever giving him the chance to learn. Tom explained how Travis eventually passed out on a bench with his head in his hands and muttered, "Alex made it seem so simple. I had no idea. I didn't bother to find out." It seems that Dad simply stood there, looking pale as the company he founded fell apart all around him. The weight of real responsibility was causing the Golden Sun's facade to crumble. The tone of my family's text drastically shifted. "Please call us," which evolved from "we need to talk" to "the business is in serious trouble." Mom began making calls every day, her messages getting more urgent. Jessica, Travis's fiancée, even reached out, stating that he was so stressed out that he was having trouble sleeping. I kept my distance and concentrated on succeeding in my new position. In my first 2 months, I closed 3 significant commercial contracts and received a hefty bonus. I was finally able to save enough money for a down payment on a small property thanks to my raise and manageable work schedule. I also purchased a new truck for myself, not a corporate car, funded by the results of labor that has been adequately compensated. In our industry, news spreads quickly. In passing, suppliers who dealt with both businesses brought up Wilson Family Plumbing's demise. One person said, "Heard your dad had to lay off 3 more guys while delivering parts." It is disheartening to witness a long-standing company experiencing such difficulties. I remained dignified in my work. In spite of the temptation, I never disparaged my family. On a Tuesday night after we had not spoken for 3 months, my father called. There was a change in his voice. Older, defeated. "Alex, we must speak in person. The company, it's not good." We decided to meet on neutral ground at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. Their physical changes were startling when Dad and Travis showed up. Dad was lighter. His normally flawless appearance had become unkempt. Travis appeared to have gone weeks without sleep. His eyes had dark shadows under them. He has lost all of his usual swagger. They outlined the terrible circumstances. Revenue is 60% lower. There were only 4 employees left. Their business loan was jeopardized by the bank. To cover costs, 3 trucks have already been sold. Travis had been really proud of the new truck. Sacrificed to keep the lights on, gone too. Dad had even taken out a mortgage on his home to help finance the struggling company. "Alex, we made mistakes," Dad said, his voice cracking. You were taken for granted by me. I'm paying the price now." I witnessed my father crying for the first time in my life. Travis couldn't look me in the eyes and instead gazed at the table. A folder was pushed across the table by Dad. It contained a partnership agreement that included full operational management, a significant pay raise, and 45% ownership. "Please," he said in a whisper, "help us preserve what remains." The previous Alex would have seized the chance, eager to be acknowledged for the first time after longing for it. However, the day my truck was given away, that version of me passed away. Rather, I simply stated that I had no interest in going back. From day one, I had discovered a location where my abilities were appreciated, not after a disastrous failure compelled acknowledgement. I clarified, "I'm not trying to punish you. I just realized how valuable I am at last. I tried to earn something that should have been given to me freely for 15 years. Respect, just compensation, recognition. I refused to go back." At last, Travis's voice was hollow. "Until you departed, I had no idea how much you were doing. Running service calls seemed simple to me. He hesitated and swallowed hard, thinking, I believe Dad was giving you preferential treatment, completing all of the crucial work for you. I was mistaken. I took no pleasure in their misery. Rather, I provided what assistance I could. Names of potential qualified plumbers for their reorganized company, ideas for simplifying in order to continue operating with a reduced operation, suggestions for clients to focus on in order to restore their reputation. I informed them, this isn't about retaliation. I didn't go out to harm you. I departed because I was worthy of better. Wilson Family Plumbing is still in business 6 months later, but is a shadow of what it used to be. Dad has taken a big step back and is thinking about retiring early. Instead of delegating everything, Travis has been compelled to learn the ropes and handle service calls himself. After losing the majority of their commercial clients, they now only have 3 trucks and concentrate on residential work. It's awkward when we first see each other at family get-togethers, but we eventually settle into a new routine. After seeing my new home and learning that I had been promoted to commercial division manager, Mom finally stopped trying to guilt-trip me into going back. Even Travis, who occasionally texts me technical questions that I respond to politely, has grown to respect me despite his reluctance. I didn't wake up with a knot in my stomach for the first time in my adult life. I've changed from the fervently devoted son who never received the approval he sought. The physical strain of plumbing work wasn't the biggest weight I've ever carried. It was the emotional burden of attempting to win the respect and affection of those who didn't value me. Retaliation isn't always the reason to leave. It can be the sole route to self-respect at times. I've discovered that the best form of retaliation isn't seeing other people fail after you've left. It is succeeding so thoroughly that your value is determined by your absence. Kevin told me last month that he wants me to manage his second location, which he plans to open in the nearby county. He claims that I could eventually buy him out and turn it into my own business. I find myself visualizing the fleet of trucks, organizing the service area, and creating the logo in my head. Wilson Blue was the only color painted, not with malice, but because I'm creating something that is genuinely mine at last. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My son's homophobic insults and false abuse claims against my husband forced me to send him to live with his mom. This entire situation is kind of awful, and honestly, I'm a bit heartbroken for my husband. His real name's not IDC. I'm Sean, 37M. My husband is Zach, 36M, and my son is 16, not saying his name. I divorced my ex-wife after she cheated on me for the entirety of our marriage over a decade ago. I don't care anymore. My son is mine, already over and done. I met Zach when I was 28, my son was 7. Me and Zach hit it off instantly. I was finally in a place to start dating again, and thankfully he was the first person I was interested in. We connected on everything me and my ex-wife did and a million more things. People say life has a plan for you, and honestly, I believe it. I'd go through a million more divorces and be cheated on over and over if I ended up with him every time. One of the big things was my son. Zach was hesitant at first just because of the situation, but he wanted a family badly, and I was excited for him to meet my son. After dating for a year, I talked to my ex and told her I'm introducing our son to a guy I'm seeing. I told her it's serious and I see a future with him. She was happy for me. We have a very good relationship now. She just told me to tell her when I was going to do it so she could be prepared if our son had any questions for her when he visited next. Zach and my son were best friends. Did everything together. They loved playing Minecraft together. They spent hours sitting in front of the TV. I loved watching them. I was so happy the first person I found after my ex was this amazing. After about 6 months, I asked Zach to move in, and the rest is exactly as I've been describing. Amazing. My son started calling Zach his other dad when he was 10, a very sweet moment which makes this hurt worse. Well, last weekend my son had 3 of his friends over. They were playing video games in his room, and I just left to do grocery shopping for the week, so it was just them and Zach. I don't know how this topic came up, but things got very homophobic. My husband was sitting on the couch, and I guess my son and his friends thought me and he left, but it was just me. My son's room is connected to the living room, so if you're sitting in the living room, It's not super hard to hear what's going on in his room if he's being loud enough. For teenage boys playing video games. One of them said, "How it feels having a fat as a father. I don't know if I can say it or not on here." My son laughed and said it was kind of shitty. They said my husband probably touched him when he was little, and my son replied, "He can try it now, he'll get his ass beat." So, not even being an a-hole to Zach but now also threatening him over something we all know he would never do. They kept saying, like, which one do you think takes it in the butt? Probably the fat, at least your real dad still likes women. Just a bunch of hateful bullshit. My husband sat there listening to it all, silently crying. Also, Zach has spent a good 4 hours a day at the gym for the last 3 years, so I don't know who's getting their ass beat, but it ain't him. I got home about 2 hours later to my husband sitting in his car with a bag packed, waiting for me so he could leave but didn't want to leave my son alone. I asked, "What's going on? Why are you leaving?" And he told me everything. I tried to understand as best I could. I insisted he wasn't serious. He's just being a stupid kid, acting tough with his friends. But it didn't matter, the damage was done. Zach left, and I went inside and went off on my son. His friends left, and I spent a good 3 hours going back and forth with my son. At first, he was very unapologetic and kind of agreed with his friends. I asked if he actually thought my husband sexually abused him when he was younger. And he said no, but kids block those kinds of memories out, so really, who knows? I told him to pack his shit, he's living with his mother. His mother lives 3 hours away, which means new school, new friends, if at all, less private space as he'd have to share a room with his stepbrother, etc. Just everything that you'd expect going from a single kid in a house to one of 4. My son instantly changed his attitude. He was crying, begging me not to send him away. He didn't mean it. He was just lying to seem cool to his friends. I asked why he doubled down when they left, and he didn't have an answer. I told him to pack his shit, he's leaving in the morning. My ex told her the situation, and she agrees he needs something drastic. What he did wasn't okay at all. Fast forward to now, and my husband is back, but he cries every night. Honestly, it feels like he's mourning, which I don't want because when you mourn, you don't get over someone. You get as close to indifferent as possible to keep living your life without them. I don't want that. I want my husband and my son to have that strong bond one know they have and don't want them to throw it away over this. I don't agree with what my son did, but those accusations at a minimum can ruin someone's life and at most, end it. I'm disgusted with my son. He calls me every day and tells me he misses me and Zach and wants to come home. I stay strong on the phone, but after, I break down and my husband tries to console me, tells me my son can come back and he will leave. But no, I'm not doing that. I just don't know what to do. I miss my son. I miss coming home and seeing them spending time together. I've thought about therapy for him, but he said, "No, you can't force therapy on someone. They'll just sit there for an hour and piss away for $100. I need advice." Comments. Comment 1, NTA. Therapist here, but obviously everyone is different, so take it with a grain of salt. Parenting is sometimes wildly difficult, and this is one of those times. You did exactly the right thing. There are so many lessons for your son to learn here, just to name a few. He needs to not only learn the consequences of his actions, but that some things truly cannot be taken back. Trying to be cool by being an a-hole for absolutely no reason will not end well. It will not only alienate the people who actually care about you, but the people who get off on being unkind will eventually turn on you, too. Most people do not get along with their step-parents, and he has been taking that for granted. Separately, if you let him back and Zach leaves, your relationship with your son will be forever altered as well as your son's life in general. All the love Zach has for him and their connection can be repaired once he gets his head out of his ass. If Zach leaves, your son will know he ruined his father's relationship for the rest of his life. The guilt and resentment from that can cause huge problems later on in life. This can be worked on, can be resolved. I strongly suggest making family therapy a requirement for moving back into the house with an LGBTQIA+ friendly therapist who can get down to the root of how harmful this was and make him understand that. Individual therapy is also a great idea, but family dynamic stuff needs to take priority. Comment 2. This is great advice, but considering the man alleged he was possibly a pedophile, OP's husband clearly isn't going to risk his future on someone who is capable of being that callous. I wouldn't either. This is fixable, but it doesn't mean it will be. It's not any different if a blended family comes together and the daughter accuses her stepdad of touching her. There was literally a post 2 months ago about this exactly. He moved out, divorced the mom, and refused to stop the divorce once she confessed her bio dad put her up to it so he could get back with the mom. Kid thought dad would come back if it happened. Newsflash, he didn't. That said, everyone told him that his future wasn't worth risking it. Just because he didn't get a full-on accusation and a police investigation doesn't mean he should be asked to risk it. I'm saying the same here. Zach said he would move out if the son came back. I think we are likely beyond counseling, at least for a while. Certainly not while he's a minor. There is hope in the future though, and this is the way. Comment 3, yep. I wouldn't risk it, and neither should Zach. Some things cannot be taken back. Some harms cannot be undone. Comment 4. I tell my kids this when we talk about choosing our words. Words are like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out of the tube, it's almost impossible to put it back. Update. 2 days later. This will be long, sorry. Not going to lie, the entire OG post was basically a disaster. I expected a few replies, with only one actually being helpful, and then the post died. Didn't happen that way. So much back and forth and so much hate towards me being gay. I expected some, but holy st. I was done with that post when someone suggested that me and my husband both abuse my son sexually. Just an absolute disaster. I thought living in Montana was bad with the homophobia I deal with. As for the update, I spent the day yesterday with my son. A lot of people accused me of not taking his claims seriously. I did. The first 30 minutes of our initial talk when this all happened was about if he actually was abused. He said no. I asked again when I got here. I made sure to let him know there is no one I'd believe over him. He won't be punished for saying the truth if he was abused. But I needed to know. Again, he said no, he was never touched or raped by my husband. On to the questions and his answers. Why would you say something so dangerous? My son said he was feeling rejected by my husband since as of late he hasn't been spending nearly as much time with him. Which is true. A large part of my husband's life is my son. Zach tutors him, he coaches him in his sport, basketball, he goes on morning runs with my son. He used to drive him to and from school before my son got his car. They both share a lot of interest and, as a kid-step-parent dynamic, they spend a lot of time together. Towards the end of last year's summer, when my son was still with his mother, my husband talked to me. He said he wanted to start spending more time apart, but not that kind of apart. He wanted to have more of a social life. He wanted to be able to do things away from us, but not like separate, if that makes sense. He realized my son would be leaving for college in 2-ish years, and my son was such a large part of his life, he didn't want to become depressed after he left with nothing to do. I agreed and said it was a good idea and he had my full support, as long as he still came home every night at a reasonable time and didn't let his relationship with my son suffer or anything. As of now, yes, it is different. My son doesn't need rides to school, he doesn't need tutoring, he doesn't do basketball anymore. Their hobbies are still the same, but my husband has been spending less time at home. It's not like he's gone all hours of the day and comes back at 3 a.m., but he has a healthy social life. I don't know how to explain it. Do you realize how dangerous it is to say something like that if it isn't true? He said yes, and he didn't think anyone was listening. He was just going along with his friend. That didn't make sense to me, so I asked why he stood by his statement after I sent his friends home. He said he thought he shouldn't back down from something he says, kind of like a ride or die, I don't know. I told him that's stupid and never do that, especially if he regrets what he said and it wasn't true in the first place. He said he knows, he realized that when it happened, but he just couldn't stop himself from keeping it up. It didn't hit him that it was serious until I told him he's going to stay with his mother. Why do you want to be friends with people that talk so much shit about your parents? He doesn't want to, but the kids bully the shit out of everyone they don't like, and he feels like he's in too deep to back out now. I do understand. I had kids in my school like that. Bully everyone. They were cool to me though until they found out I was gay. Then they effed my last few years of high school up. I told him I get it to some degree, but he doesn't have to add into what they're saying. A small chuckle and a "you too" is usually enough to get people to move on from something. I also asked about them bullying him because they kind of were. He said, Yeah, but they're not that bad with it. They just rip into him every so often about having gay dads, and I guess over time it made my son feel poorly towards my husband. The distance my husband was setting with my son, mixed with his friends saying the shit they did, just added up to that. I told him I understood. I want to make it clear I don't support what he said. I understand the emotions behind it though. Why didn't you talk to us about how you were feeling? He said he didn't want to start anything. My husband and he are still close. He didn't know how he felt and was more confused than anything. So why say something that would cause a fight if he didn't even know if he felt that way? I also understood this. At this point, I think this is just one miscommunication after another. Open dialogue would have prevented all of this from happening. There were a lot more questions, but me and my ex ended with, "Do you actually feel remorseful for what you said? Or are you just tired of sleeping in the same room as a 7-year-old? He's actually remorseful. He told me even if he was staying there all year, he would still feel terrible over what he said about Zach." Reassuring him again, if anything did happen, now is the time to speak and I will believe him. Again, he said no. He started crying, saying he just missed us. Emotional moment, we hugged, told him I loved him and that would never change. I asked him to leave the room so me and his mother could talk. We decided on a month-to-month assessment to see when he would get privileges back, ending with him coming home. There were conditions to all of this, like family therapy, solo therapy, cutting his friends off completely, which I would help with. He was against the solo therapy but came around. He asked if Zach was here. I said no but would ask him if he wanted to come next time, which my son smiled at. I still agree sending my son to my ex-wife's was the right move. A lot of people aggressively disagree, which is fine. My parenting style isn't for everyone. One of you told me I should beat the kids up though, so like, do I really care if some of you disagree with how I parent? I don't know, not really. Situation still sucks. I don't know what to say. I miss my son. He isn't coming home right now, and I wish I was leaving her house with him. As it stands right now, son is living with his mother and her family. He will get his phone and PS5 and car back at the end of the first, second, and third month, in that order. He will be able to move out of the room he's currently in out into the guest house at the end of month 4. Every month after that is touch and go, and we'll discuss at the end of each month what we think. Son will do bi-weekly solo therapy, and we will all do bi-weekly family therapy. We see it as he should do solo therapy 1 week, then family therapy the next. He can come back sooner. I want him back. My husband wants him back. He's wanted him back since he left. His mother is holding strong, but she also sees he's just miserable, so I think she'll break at some point and give up the guest house early. It is what it is. At the end of the night, my son asked if Zach would want to hear from him so he could apologize, and I told him yes. I've told him yes a few times now. Zach would love to hear from him. I doubt he'd have to wait longer than 1 ring before Zach picked up. My son called him as I was leaving, so I know they spoke. I don't know about what though. When I got home, Zach was feeling like shit and blaming himself more for all of this. I told him it's no one's fault. We just needed to talk to each other more. All in all, I think my son is remorseful, and he was just feeling trapped and isolated in a shitty situation and didn't know how to get out of it. I feel for him, and I wish I saw what was happening sooner. Thank you all for the advice, or most of you. Some of you were just nasty and hateful. Someone on my first post called Stoner Therapist or something like that gave good advice. I didn't say it on that post, but if you read this, good. Thanks for it. Next update will be when he comes home. Hopefully it will be soon. Thanks, y'all. Comments. Comment 1. Hey, sounds like you've had a heck of a roller coaster. Family dynamics can turn into a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces are hiding under the couch cushions. You did what you thought was best in a tough situation, and it's clear you care deeply for your son and your husband. Props to you for navigating such choppy waters and for keeping communication open, even when it's as fun as stepping on Legos in the dark. It's great to hear that you're setting up some therapy. It's like oiling the squeaky wheels of family interaction. Just remember, healing and understanding take time, like fine wine or figuring out why the printer won't work even though it's plugged in and the Wi-Fi is fine. Keeping my fingers crossed that your family puzzle comes together smoothly, even if it takes a bit more searching under the furniture for those missing pieces. Here's to hoping the next update is full of good news and homecomings. Comment 2. Screw those a-holes that show hate. Sounds like you have a wonderful battle plan in action. Hope your son makes the right choices in friends going forward. Now on to the next story. Story 10. My stepsister stole my fiancé and taunted me with postcards. Now they're broke and begging for a job at our family business. I, 28F, was engaged to my college boyfriend about 4 years ago. We had been together throughout college and got engaged at 23. A week before our wedding, he ran off with my stepsister. My ex-fiancé, Greg, 28M, and my stepsister, Melissa, 28F, eloped just before our big day, leaving only a letter behind. In the letter, Greg admitted to starting an affair with Melissa a few months after our engagement. He said he realized he couldn't marry me because it would be unfair to all of us, as he and Melissa were the ones truly in love. He believed the universe used me to bring him to his true love, and marrying me would deny us all a happy future. And that was it. They left, and I didn't see them again until recently. Greg's parents were so embarrassed by his actions that they covered all the wedding costs so I didn't have to pay anything. That was the last time I interacted with his family. My own family was beyond embarrassed. They were furious. My father even considered hiring a private detective to track them down and bring them back for answers. Just to let you know, my father is actually my stepdad, but he has been my father ever since I was very young, and I have always called him Dad, because he is the only father I've ever known. My biological dad left shortly after I was born, and my mom never saw him again since he gave up his parental rights and they were never married. My mom married my dad when I was 8. Melissa and I went to the same school, which is how our parents met. For some reason, Melissa took a dislike to me and treated me terribly for years. She was a true bully, constantly picking on me at school with her friends. The torment didn't stop at home. She would find ways to make me feel bad there too. Despite my complaints, our parents' attempts to discipline her weren't effective, and she wasn't afraid of them, so she continued her bullying. My school years were a nightmare because of her and her friends. Much like my dad was absent, Melissa's mom wasn't around either, as she had passed away a few years after Melissa was born. Her mother died in the middle of the night from an epileptic episode. So, whenever my mom tried to discipline her, Melissa would retort that she had no right because she wasn't her real mom. My father attempted to stop her bullying, but it was futile as she was fearless. They tried everything from scolding to gentle talks, but nothing curbed her behavior. Occasionally, they threatened to send her away, but she would boldly challenge them, knowing they were empty threats. In middle school, she was already troublesome, but by high school, her behavior worsened significantly. She picked up bad habits, becoming almost a juvenile delinquent. She started smoking and sneaking out to drink with her equally problematic friends. The turning point came when she was arrested with her friends one night for breaking into a house while drunk. This incident finally pushed our parents to take action. After weeks of pleading and protesting, they managed to send her to a rehabilitation center for troubled teens. Though she was unhappy, my father was adamant, insisting that if she wanted to stay with us and be part of the family, she had to improve. He couldn't allow her behavior to continue and disrupt everyone else, as she was becoming a menace to society. Melissa left during our sophomore year and didn't return until after we had graduated. She enrolled in a school near the rehab center and stayed with her aunt. I didn't see her during those years because I had no interest in how my biggest bully was doing. My parents visited her every weekend and always asked if I wanted to join, but I always said no. Her friends ignored me after she left, which greatly improved my high school experience as I no longer had anyone constantly bullying me. Melissa continued her education in rehab, and when she returned, the first thing she did was apologize for everything she had put me through. She seemed much calmer, and I thought she had genuinely changed, so I forgave her. We were both heading off to college in a few months anyway, so it didn't seem to matter much. Once college started, we both moved out and only came back home for the holidays. During those times, she was much nicer to me. Not in the sense of being friendly, but she simply ignored me instead of constantly picking on me as she used to. I had no reason to suspect anything. Even after getting engaged, they both acted as if nothing was happening. I never thought Greg might have feelings for Melissa. It never crossed my mind because Greg convincingly acted like he was in love with me, all while cheating on me with Melissa. She also pretended to be my friend, so I didn't find out the truth until it was too late, and they had already left. My parents wanted to track them down and bring them back, but I convinced them to let it go because I just wanted to forget everything. It was already devastating that Greg and Melissa made a fool of me by running off a week before my wedding. I couldn't handle any more drama. I was deeply depressed and emotionally drained for weeks. I buried myself in work and sleep to avoid confronting my heartbreak. My heart was shattered, and I felt numb, but worse was yet to come. A couple of weeks after the day that should have been my wedding, I received a postcard from Melissa. She was in California and included a bunch of photos of her and Greg looking incredibly happy. It was clear she was rubbing it in my face. She mentioned being sorry about the surprise before my wedding, but it was obvious she wasn't truly sorry. She just wanted to hurt me. That's when I realized she had never forgiven me for what happened years ago and blamed me for being sent away. She never wanted to be my friend. She used me to get to Greg. I had trusted her and ended up being a stepping stone in her malicious plan. I have to admit, for days after receiving that postcard, I couldn't sleep because I was losing my mind over it. It was a traumatic experience, and I needed months of therapy to heal and address my trust issues. The postcard wasn't a one-time thing. She sent me pictures of her and Greg for months. It only stopped after about a year because I never responded or engaged with her drama. Our parents were furious and cut all ties with her after the first postcard. They never reached out to her again, which was a significant loss for Melissa because she was poised to inherit her dad's business. She was a business major partly because she wanted to join our father's company. However, after her betrayal, our father severed all ties with her and offered me the opportunity to work with him instead, feeling he needed to make amends in a significant way. Unlike her, I had a degree in history which had nothing to do with business. Therefore, I needed to learn the ropes from scratch. My father assured me this wasn't an issue and was eager to teach me everything he knew so I could eventually take over the business. I agreed and started working under him to learn how to run the business, allowing him to retire and hand over the reins to me after a few years of hard work. I was promoted last year and my father retired. It was a fantastic feeling, having started from the bottom and learned everything I needed to know. Now the business runs smoothly under my management, and my parents can enjoy their time together without worrying about it, thanks to my efforts. For a long time, I immersed myself in my work, which helped me move on from Greg. The combination of work and therapy allowed me to heal, and I no longer think about Greg or what he did. I never expected to hear from them again, let alone have them ask for my help. It would take a lot of nerve and a serious lack of common sense to ask for my help after betraying me, humiliating me, and flaunting it. Yet Melissa and Greg must indeed lack sense because that's exactly what they did a few days ago. It was the weekend and around lunchtime. My doorbell rang frantically. Thinking it was the pizza I ordered, I didn't think much of it. To my shock, when I opened the door, instead of the delivery guy, there stood Melissa looking extremely worried. Speechless, I waited for her to speak. It was clear she was there to ask for help. She looked destitute, and her appearance betrayed her situation. Melissa, always impeccably dressed, now wore old, faded clothes that looked long out of date. Her jeans were too short, and she appeared malnourished. I had already decided that whatever she asked, my answer would be no. She explained that she and Greg had been struggling ever since he lost his job a few months ago. Instead of job hunting, he had taken to drinking. Although she had been trying to find a job, her efforts were unsuccessful because she had left the workforce to handle household chores when she moved away with Greg. This gap in her resume made her a less attractive candidate for the jobs she applied for. She had heard from relatives that our father had retired and handed the business over to me, so she came to ask if I would hire Greg. Melissa admitted she hadn't approached our parents yet and came straight to me because she believed I had a kind heart and felt immense guilt over her past betrayal, confident I wouldn't turn her away now that she needed my help. Her entitlement was so absurd that I laughed in her face and told her to apply elsewhere because I don't hire cheaters. Then I shut the door on her and walked back to the living room, ready to call the cops if she didn't leave soon. Fortunately, she left that day, but she hasn't stopped bothering me. After her visit, I called our parents to tell them about it. They said they'd heard from neighbors that Melissa was back in town without Greg but hadn't mentioned it. In our small town, news travels fast, so we quickly found out that Melissa had been in town for about a week, staying with an old high school friend. It was likely this friend who told her where I lived and that I had inherited the business she thought should have been hers. She was now really playing that card. A few days after visiting me, she went to our parents to complain about how heartless I was. She expected them to side with her, thinking she had the upper hand by playing the victim, but she was wrong. My father told her that the business was mine to run and I could make my own decisions. He wasn't going to interfere. My mother reminded her that she had betrayed me by running away with my fiancé after pretending to be my friend for years, so she deserved whatever was happening to her. Melissa had lost the right to ask any of us for help, especially after sending me postcards to torment me. She tried to defend herself, saying it was all in the past and she was a different person now, but my parents told her to leave, wanting nothing to do with her anymore. She threw a tantrum, accusing them of always favoring me and treating me like the golden child, while ignoring her. My father responded that he had made more allowances for her behavior than any other parent would, but she insisted it still didn't matter. I had everything she was supposed to have, including the business I was flaunting. She claimed it wasn't her fault that Greg fell for her and chose her over me, yet she felt she was being punished for it. She said the postcards she sent were sincere apologies, not attempts to torment me. Honestly, I haven't stopped thinking about her words since my father told me. It's true she was supposed to inherit the business and be in my position, but she lost that because of her own actions, not mine. I never asked my father to cut her out and give me the business. He did that on his own. It seems unfair for her to blame me. She also accused me of being the golden child, which isn't true, but I can see why she thinks that. She believes she was sent away because I complained about her bullying. It's a big deal for a parent to decide to send their child away, and I know it was hard on my father, but again, that's not my fault. If he hadn't intervened, Melissa might have ended up in even more trouble because of the path she was on. I also doubt her claim about the postcards being genuine apologies. She was probably just trying to cover up her intentions. I feel sorry for her because her husband turned out to be completely useless, and now she has to bail him out. She even came to me for help, which must have been incredibly hard for her. I regret how I treated her before. I have everything now, and she has nothing, so I can't help but pity her. That's just who I am. Besides, it's been a long time, and I'm tired of holding on to this grudge, but I also don't want to help her. I can offer my sympathy, but I don't want to hire them or give them money. I think it's enough that I even feel bad for her after everything she put me through, which most people wouldn't do. The only reason I feel bad for her now is that this business was supposed to be hers. Now that I'm in a position of power, I'm finally getting back at her, and it feels wrong. Maybe it's because of what she said about me being the golden child, or maybe it's just imposter syndrome, but I feel weird about this. So, am I the AH for refusing to hire my ex-fiancé who eloped with my stepsister now that they're struggling with money and need help? Update 1. I was at a loss, and the comments here only made things more confusing. Some of you thought I was right to turn them away, while others claim I was always the favored child, causing Melissa to act out. This wasn't as helpful as I hoped. I decided to talk to my parents, as I've always sought their advice when facing problems. They assured me I had no reason to feel sorry for Melissa. They said everyone had gone above and beyond to help her become a better person. But if she wasn't willing to change, there was little we could do. My father mentioned he had intended to let her take over the business if she had behaved and been a good daughter, but she failed and embarrassed the family. Given that, she couldn't expect to take over or even be part of the family anymore. Talking to my parents made me feel much better, so I'll try not to feel guilty about things I haven't done anymore. Update 2. About a week had passed since Melissa had shown up at my door and visited my parents. We hadn't heard from her, and I almost thought she had gone back to Greg until today when she appeared at my workplace and caused a scene. It was terrible because she just walked in, knowing the place well from childhood, and easily bypassed security. She stood in front of my office, shouting that I had stolen the business from her by pretending to be a perfect daughter to our parents and constantly sucking up to them to gain their approval. She accused me of falsely claiming she had bullied me throughout our childhood and convincing our father to send her to rehab just to solidify my position as the favored child. She declared that the business was supposed to be hers, but I was refusing to let her be a part of it because I was jealous Greg had chosen her over me. Unlike our parents who had always favored me, she said I had lost my mind from being overlooked and had turned our parents against her. When I heard the commotion, I called security and went to see what was happening. I tried to tell her to shut up, but she continued for a few more minutes until security finally threw her out of the building. I called my dad before contacting the police to get his opinion, and he was furious. He told me to go ahead and call the cops. Luckily, when the police arrived, she was still lurking nearby, likely waiting for me to leave so she could confront me again or maybe even physically attack me. The police took her away and charged her with trespassing and disturbing the peace. They are minor charges and she might get off with a fine or community service at worst, but it will go on her record, which is never good. I informed my dad about the charges and arrest, expecting him to be upset, but he just seemed exasperated and said he was tired of dealing with her craziness. I feel bad for him because it must be hard having a daughter like Melissa and being blamed for everything that goes wrong in her life, even though it's usually her own fault. Honestly, we have all been really patient. Update 3. So I think Melissa has gone back to California because we haven't heard from her in a few days, which is unusual since we expected her to lash out after her arrest. My dad asked around and found out that some people saw her heading towards the airport recently, so it seems she's left. Honestly, it's a huge relief that she's gone because I was really worried she might do something drastic to get our attention, which is never good. I have no idea what she plans to do about the situation with Greg now, as it seems unlikely she'll get help from anyone after this. I just hope she finds something to do and gets out of this mess, not out of kindness or compassion, but because if she doesn't, she'll just come back here with Greg and bother us again, and I don't want that. So I genuinely hope and pray that either she or Greg finds a job and can support themselves for now. At least I won't have to hear from her for a couple of weeks, and I believe this nightmare is finally over. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My husband doesn't want to spend time with his family. I've gotten closer to one of our friends and I'm now in love with him. I'm not sure this is the best place for this type of thing, but if there's a better place, please point me in the right direction. So, me, F31, and my husband, M32, have a 4-year-old daughter together. Same old story, great in the beginning. The usual small arguments, and especially since having our daughter. He is way more distant, would rather spend his time playing video games than spend time with me or our daughter. Oh, and if he's not playing games, he's on YouTube on his phone watching people play games. We have a tight friend group that I'm married into, so to speak. 14 of us. Everyone at least went to high school with each other, some went to elementary. I'm the only outsider. Around 8 months ago, a couple from this group bought a house very close to ours. Naturally, our daughters have become closer friends and want to do a lot of things together, so she joined the same dance class as ours. The class is at 8 a.m. on Saturdays, so the dad takes her, SM31, and I have always gotten along. We met around 9 years ago when my husband and I got together. The first week at class, we sat together for the hour in the waiting room, separate from the hall so we can't actually watch. We usually just sit in awkward silence. S is quite a funny guy, so it flew by with his company. The next week, he says he's going to get a coffee instead of sitting in that room. I'm welcome to join if I'm not busy. I agree and we get in his car. We end up stuck in traffic, so by the time we get there, there's not much time left to sit in and have it, so we get it to go and sat for 20 minutes in his car. That's fine. The next week he says he's doing the same thing. I'm welcome to join. We go again, and this time I don't know why, but I got very paranoid about it. I asked if we could just get it in the drive-thru and stay in the car again. He says sure, and we end up passing his phone between us, picking terrible songs from our childhood for the hour. It was actually quite fun, and every week for the past 8 months has went like this, and I've not told my husband about any of it. I lost my dad a few months ago, and my husband just didn't care. No compassion, no comforting, nothing. I couldn't believe the man I married was acting this way when I needed him most. I couldn't even cry around him without him huffing and puffing. S turned to my outlet during this time, and I've cried in his arms several times through this. He asked how things were at home, and I was honest with him and told him I've never felt more alone than when I'm at home with my husband. He has been amazing putting up with me and had suggested a marriage counselor, which I brought to my husband, but he was having none of it. S has told me he feels differently about my husband. He had no idea he was like that and has actually made a few comments towards him about it, but as usual, way above my husband's head. I've lost feelings for my husband and probably did a long time ago and have fallen for S hard. I feel wrecked with guilt, confused, hurt, sad. But all of that goes away when I see his face. I want to add here that in no way has S ever been inappropriate to me. He's never acted creepy, never said anything suggestible, never caught him staring. Nothing at all that would suggest he has alternate motives. But I'm ashamed to admit the only reason we haven't kissed or had sex is because he's never made a move. I'm scared because the way he makes me feel, I don't think I would say no or pull away. There's been a few times after seeing him when I get home that all I do is wish he did make a move, and that makes me a horrible person. This all sounds crazy for someone I spend an hour with every morning at the weekend, but it's spilled over to other clubs our kids go to. He'll see him at nursery. I started matching our dog walking time some days so we will see each other. If there's an excuse to see him, I'll find it and use it. I know this is bad and I need to do something about it, but when it comes to it, I never do anything because I don't want to. Then hours after I'm battling my head telling myself I need to stop and I need to sort my marriage, whether that be working on it or separating. I want to tell us how I feel, but I don't want to look like a fool. I don't want to scare him. What if it blows up their marriage? What if our kids can't see each other? What happens to the friend group if this gets out? It's a mess. I don't know what to do because we will still see each other a lot. My husband would never take our daughter to classes, so I'm stuck with that. I always do the nursery runs. How can I get over him if he's everywhere? Update 1. Seeing as my last post got an overwhelming amount of attention, I thought I would post an update. I want to thank everyone who messaged me privately. All from very similar situations. Reading through your messages, it's crazy to me how many people seem to be married to the same person. It's given me the strength I needed to make this decision. Those that left not so nice messages, please think about how your words are going to impact someone. It's very easy to sit behind a computer or phone and type up the horrible things you have. I've had people sending me messages saying I should kill myself, that my baby should be taken from me, that I'm a hoe and that I shouldn't be allowed out in public. I don't deserve those messages, no one does. A lot of people posting here will be in a vulnerable state as it is. There's no need for it, and you're the one that comes off looking broken. I'll reiterate here for the people who didn't seem to understand. I've not slept with S. I've made no moves to do so. I haven't kissed S and I've made no moves to do so. I said if he made a move with my frame of mind, I think I would be in trouble. I'm certain there will be other women here who know what I'm talking about regarding this. Anyway, yesterday I kept the same routine. Off our walk with the dogs at night. Home in bed. Just before jumping into bed, S texted me asking if I used Reddit. My heart sank. I told him I did and asked why. He sent me a link to my post and said, "Did you post this?" I admitted it was me and waited for the ground to swallow me up. He replied with "wow," and a few minutes later texted me saying not to stress. He won't tell anyone. Take the night to yourself and think things over and we will talk tomorrow. Which is now today. He told me we were going to sort it out. Everything will be fine, but we need boundaries. I was a wreck last night, but after a few hours, I calmed down. Didn't get much sleep. I read through all the messages I had gotten and reading them and looking at my husband passed out on the other side of the bed. I was seething with anger. I have no idea why. That spilled over to this morning and I'm not even going to talk it through with him. We're done. I'm organizing things while he's out so I can leave quickly if I need to. I'm sorting a place to stay today and contacting lawyers. I can feel the relief coming and nothing he says will stop me leaving. If he asks, I'll tell him there was someone who made me realize the life I have with him is not the life I want. I won't tell him who. He has been given countless chances to step up to the plate, and every time he fails me and our daughter for his own selfishness. He will never change. I haven't spoken to S yet today, and I don't really know how that side of things will pan out. I hope we can remain friends, but I totally understand if he wants to take a step back. I can't hold anything against him, and despite what people are telling me I want in my last post, I do not want to interfere in anyone's marriage. I may post another update, I may not. The last post was hard to keep on top of. I am not sure exactly what day, but the conversation will be had before Friday. Thank you for the words of encouragement. I really needed it. Update 2. I feel much better. It feels like such a relief. My husband has been trying to contact me nonstop despite being told the only communication between us will be about our daughter. I'm not interested in hearing his excuses anymore. This has brought his true colors out and only solidified my choice. He has been struggling, and my second night out of the house, I received a text from S to say my husband was currently at their house in tears. Awkward. He's been leaning on them for support, and from what I hear, will do anything he can to get me back, which is odd considering the multiple messages he sent telling me that me and our daughter ruined his life and that he never wanted any of us. I have lots of great support from friends and family, much to his chagrin. Me and S have limited contact, though he still checks in to make sure I'm all right and if me and my daughter need anything. We spoke, and we both agree I'm experiencing limerence. I reiterated that I'm not out to sleep with him, and that I have been in a very fragile state of mind for God knows how long. It doesn't make it any easier when it comes to his wife. I feel horrible and fully accepted if neither of them want to remain friends. She hasn't been told yet, but will be when things have settled a bit. I already no longer feel like I'm in love with him. It's more like he showed me the light and made me realize that the way we were living wasn't normal or healthy, and that I deserve better. My husband has his own issues like we all do, but they don't fix themselves, and I can't waste my life away in the hopes that they do. I do hope he gets himself whatever help he needs. If not for him, for our daughter. She doesn't deserve to come second to video games and YouTube. Again, I want to thank everyone who chimed in with advice and the ones who sent me their own similar stories, and I hope anyone reading these in a similar situation can take something away from my story. Don't settle and waste as many years as I did. Now on to the next story. Story 12. Caught my friends actually assaulting my blackout drunk GF and filming it at her graduation party. They said it was a joke, then harassed us for weeks and tried to turn her against me. I've been with my girlfriend Laura for a year. She is awesome and we love each other. I've been friends with Jake and Shelly for 2 years. We weren't that close, seeing as I met them through my group of friends, but now we're very close. They adore my girlfriend and pretty much hang out with her more than me. One time, they even told me if we were to break up, they would pick her side over mine, even though I've known them longer. Anyway, I'll get to the point. So Laura just graduated college and wanted to celebrate. Let me start by saying she never drinks. In the year I have known her, I think she's only drank like once or twice, and honestly, that's because my group of friends kind of pressured her into it. She doesn't handle alcohol well since she is really small and has no tolerance. This will be important later. So, Jake and Shelly invite her over to their place while I am at work, so I can't come. The plan was for them to pick her up and take her to their place, and for me to pick her up after work so she doesn't drink and drive/have to spend the night. All is well. I trust them, and I know they are experienced drinkers and would watch her. I get off at 2 a.m. from work and head over to their place. At this point, I know Laura is drunk because of the sloppy texts I'm getting from her, so I knew that I would have to take care of her. But then I get to their house and I walk in on something terrible. Laura is passed out on the ground. Shelly is on top of her making out with her, and Jake is recording it all with his phone. I freak out and ask him what the fuck is going on. I snatch his phone from him and delete the videos and pictures. He laughs and says it was all a joke, that they took the pictures to make fun of Laura in the morning, play a joke on her. I pick her up off the ground and we leave. Guys, she was so drunk she could barely walk. She was puking constantly. She was crying and couldn't see straight, and my friends were completely sober. What the fuck? I put her to bed and then received a text from Shelly saying that I shouldn't be mad since it was all a joke. I replied that they took advantage of her, and she agreed but claimed they took advantage of her in a friendly way so that she would let loose and have fun, since she is always studying. I was so disgusted that I didn't reply and cared for Laura all night since she wouldn't stop vomiting. The next day, Laura receives a bunch of text messages from them angrily berating her for getting them in trouble. They say she is a grown-ass woman who can handle her own mistakes, that they don't give a fuck what I think about what they did, that I am a little bitch, and that it's basically all her fault, and she pressured them into making the video. If you all saw how incoherent and blacked out my girlfriend was, you'd see that she couldn't even stand up, let alone pressure someone to do anything. She has been crying over it all day and switches between, yes, it was all her fault, to no, they were being disgusting. As for me, they keep berating me and insulting me for being angry, saying I am overreacting to a simple joke, that they were going to play on her. I don't know what to do. Please give me some advice. Am I wrong? Because I don't think I am, but Jake and Shelly are going around spreading rumors about this, making me out to be a jealous, controlling bitch, and my girlfriend to be a dumb drunk who pressured them into acting badly. Relevant comments. Does your girlfriend remember how much she had to drink before she started to black out? She sounds like she was really, really sick afterwards, and if she doesn't remember supposedly doing all these shots, I'd worry about how they got her into this bad of a state. Opie. She does not, but she remembers that they didn't drink, and that is fishy to me. The text the friend sent. The exact text they sent was, we really did take advantage of her, but in a friendly way she wanted to take more shots, and we wanted her to have fun. Since she's always stuck home studying, it was more of a joke to her sober self. What the fuck that means when told they are predators. You know what? I've suspected this, but I didn't want to believe it. I always felt left out because they would prefer to hang out with her, and they told me so. I feel so guilty because if it weren't for me, my girlfriend would have never met them. I feel bad for letting her go there with them. Update. Hey guys, so for several days after the incident, they constantly contacted my girlfriend, blaming her and telling her it was her fault. She did admit to them that she was blackout drunk and couldn't remember anything, and they pounced on that information by telling her false stories of what actually happened and telling her that I was lying and a controlling bitch who just wanted to isolate her from her true friends. Since they've known me for a long time, they then proceeded to tell her horrible stories about my past. That I did drugs when I was 18, for God's sake, that I was once arrested for drunk driving. That was a mistake I owned up to as soon as her and I met, and she was aware of it since the beginning, and that I've slept with multiple women and that Laura is just another number to me. Guys, I'll admit that I used to be a party animal and I have a bad past. But I am a changed person now and I love my girlfriend with all of my heart. It hurt that they were using my past against me in order to get her to come to their side. So I told her that she should go to the police and file a report, and she agreed. She warned them to quit harassing her and they flipped the fuck out. They showed up at our house late at night to try to talk to her. They left treats and presents for her at our door. They even got her parents involved. Now, her parents are not idiots, and as soon as I told her what they did to Laura, her parents banned them from the house and threatened to call the police if they ever showed up again. It was a crazy ordeal considering they left handwritten notes for her parents to read. Signed, Love your favorite son and daughter. WTF? Laura spent many nights crying into my arms, racked with guilt and confusion. Finally, we went to the police after weeks of this harassment and filed a report. She did not want to press charges. I'm working on building her self-esteem back up so she has the strength to do it if she ever wants to. The police officers said that she has enough evidence to press charges against them, since she has the text where they admitted to taking advantage of her. And they also said that if she presses charges, they can confiscate their phones and search for their video. I'm still not sure how that would work, but I'm not questioning it. Laura just wanted to file a report just in case anything happens in the future. There is a paper trail. She's contemplating putting a restraining order on them, but for now they've stopped and have gone silent. We no longer have contact with them or any other friends that believe their lies. Laura is in therapy and is slowly starting to understand that she was sexually assaulted, and sometimes I go with her to support her. The hardest part for her is not feeling like it's her fault. She brings up the fact that she was drunk, and if she had not gotten that drunk, it all could have been avoided. I always tell her that it is not her fault. We will see if she decided to press charges. I can't force her to do anything she doesn't want to do, but I support her in anything she chooses. So there it is. I'm not sure what to make of the craziness that happened after that night. I don't get why they went psycho, leaving her notes and gifts and trying to talk to her parents. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.